Good evening, folks, and welcome to the stream. Tonight we're going to be playing Raging Loop. We haven't played this one before. It's a visual novel style game, and what I'm hoping is that it will be interesting for everybody here. Partly because it is horror themed, so new concept, at least as far as the visual novel style games we've been playing. It also has a sort of branching narrative that you can supposedly rewind in so that you can take different paths. That was one of the elements of the Beacon Pines game that we enjoyed, was that you could go back and try different things and get different parts of the story. So with any luck, we're going to see more of that. Before we get too much further into it, though, let's check in with the kitties. See, Mason, Sherbet, and Sammy are MIA here, but we do have Sky napping up in the cat tree, and then we have Ember up there on the heating pad next to the little stairs. Let's put the camera on her because she's being a little... Classically, she is Ember cute there. Got her head on the little pillow next to her. But yeah, not sure how this game will go. Worst case, we will bail out and try something different. But with any luck, we won't have to do that. Let's see, buttons. The implication of this, based on what I read, is that there's supposed to be some sort of werewolf involved, and people gonna die. Interesting. New detailed chart. Okay. There is some sort of... Okay. The tree is a jump around tree. Wonder if there is English audio here. The They're gonna turn their voices down a little bit because based on what we could see in the little tutorial sequence, it's a little loud otherwise. Yeah. Change my mind. I want to make sure you folks can hear it. It's a little louder in my ears. Is there something at the bottom? You do have to... This was built for mobile kind of vibe because you've got to either mouse wheel or click and drag to change the menu. Would you welcome to the world of this visual novel, Raging Loop? I am nobody special. Honestly, simply consider me part of the interface. You may refer to me as Rikaku.
ここでは初めてプレイなさる皆様にこのゲームの遊び方を簡単にご説明いたしたいと存じます。
You're most likely playing this game for the first time, and I am here to explain a few things about it.
いくつか変わったところのあるゲームですので、最初はぜひとも全部の説明をお読みいただきたいと思います。
This work is quite strange, you see. It's recommended that the uninitiated take the time to read everything here.
特に動画配
Those
信をなさる
uploading their
方は
gameplay should at least read the for video and sharing section. Well, let's see
必
what
ずお
that
読み
is
ください
about.
ね。最後まで読んでいただけ
If
た
you
ら
read until the end, you'll
私の
find
セクシーな画像が
apparently
見られま
a
せん。
sexy CG.
世間は厳しゅうございます。さめざめ。
It says you'll find that it doesn't exist. We truly do live in a society, a harsh society. How sad.
さて、何からご説明いたしましょう。
Where should I begin? Okay, let's about videos and sharing.
レイジングループはノベルゲーム。物語や展開やオチはとても大
Visual
事。
novel, meaning that the story, events, and conclusions are very important.
それら
Because
全
of
てを
this, it
配
would be
信さ
very
れてしまい
troubling
ま
if
すと
someone uploaded
とても
everything to
困
the
ってし
internet.
まい
I'd
ま
be
す。
sad.
かといって、お
But
楽
again, we
しみ
do
は多すぎ
understand
て
those who
は
want to
手合い
enjoy
も
the work with many other people.
というわけで、私どもは動画配
We've
信
set
し
a
ていただ
guideline
け
for
る
how
範囲を
far we
設
would
定
like
し
you to
ちな
upload.
みにその範囲は
The whole
最初
first
のメイ
main
ンル
route
ート
and a
丸
little
ごと
extra.
1本。具体的には
Specifically, you can only upload until the choice at 4, infiltration, entering the village.
相当な長さが
That's
ご
a
ざい
lot,
ます
just so
の
you
で、
know.
配信
I'm
の
sure you'll
中
have
で
enough
し
content
ばら
for your
く困ること
uploads.
はないと
I mean,
保証いたします。
technically, they can't stop us.
むしろ
But I
全
don't
文
know
読
if
み
we'll
上げる
play
派の
more of
配
this
信
game
主様
anyway.
は喉が潰れないか心配です。
Uploaders who read everything aloud might get a sore throat, so please don't overdo it yourselves, alright?
ちなみに動画
If you
配信
intend to
の折に
upload,
は
please use the
お知らせ機
reminder
能
function.
この後現れる選択肢で
You have it set
お知らせ機能をオン
You
に
have
し
it
て
set
動画配信
to
終了の
on.
タイ
When
ミ
you
ング
reach
で
the time to stop making a video,
謎
a
の
strange
羊
sheep
が出
pops onto the screen and says end of
ここまで
line.
とお知らせいたします。
Well, let's at least see if we can find that, huh? I don't see a reminder function.
そこで収録はお開き
You
としてい
stop
ただき
recording when you see him and try
あとは考
theorizing
察
and
や
arguing
議論
instead.
やちなみに今はオフの状
Function
態
is
ですよ。
currently set to off. Now let's turn it on.
はい、オンにいたしました。また切り替えたい
If
と
you
き
should
は
change it, please go to zero introduction and come here again.
ここに来てくださいね。
We're just going through the
レイジング
tutorial.
ループの独特な機能について、レイジングループのストーリーは
Story branches out in ways so complicated it might be
と
hard
っ
to
て
follow.
も心配無
No
用。
need to worry, for we have included a handy function called the scenario chart.
メニューを開けば
Anytime, opening the menu, giving you an overview of the scenario. That's this little chart
そこから
here.
シナリオの全図が見られるのです。さらにこの
Not
シナ
all
リオ
using
チ
the
ャ
chart
ートを
allows
使
you
え
to
ば
move to any chapter you've already been to, anytime,
も
anywhere.
う選
You
択
don't
肢
need to
で
save
は
it
必ず
every
セーブ
choice you come
とは
across. You
申し
can
ません。
simply go back and choose
こ
again.
れでいつで
So
も
there's
選
nothing
択
to
肢は
worry
選
about.
び直せます
So
ので、
this is
ご心配
one
な
of
く
the problems that I have with a lot of basic visual novels. Ember's a bit sneezy there. Is the general need to, oh, I got to something that sounds like it's a choice or something significant happened. Better save just in case. Better save just in case. So you have, you know, a dozen and a half saves for every chapter, so that you don't miss anything. Or that you don't make a wrong choice and regret it, you know? Not entertaining to me. Phoenix Wright skirts the edge of that because the only mechanic that's a pain in the butt is the figuring out exactly what you're supposed to say when, as opposed to a branching path that will, you know, pigeonhole you into something bad happening.
シナリオチャート機能についてはまた後
Be
で
explained
もう
again
一
when
度
you use it, so don't
使い
worry.
どころの説明。次にキーにレイジングループの物語分岐は
Branching the story happens immediately when you make a choice. None of them start taking effect
後から聞くものは
further
存
down the
在し
line.
ません。
So the branch occurs immediately.
その代わり
Some of the choices can only be unlocked when you have a specific bit of information called a
キーと呼ばれる特定の情報
key.
がないと
Okay, again, very, very similar to Phoenix Wright. And you might say that searching for these keys is a major goal of this game. To understand how to search for them, it'll be explained when you get one. All routes unlocked by acquisition of a key will be open even if you haven't saved after the fact. This also means you can't load back to a state where you didn't have it. It doesn't make any scene inaccessible, so it's not much of a problem, but it's something to keep in mind. For those commendable individuals who would like to play without any keys again, please refer to Data Reset. Wonder why Special was before Standard. Some basic functions you'd expect in a visual novel. You can hide the text window, see the backlog, load save, skip read text, skip to the next choice, saving and loading, auto-save, save manually whenever you want. Options, which are options. This sheep apparently will show up when the developers of the game would prefer we stopped streaming, because that's when all of the, like, I guess, special lore as opposed to the main story starts to happen. We'll see if we end up wanting to go past that. Again, it's more of a let's be nice to them kind of factor, but this game is also old enough that if they were going to lose viewership, if they were going to lose purchases, those are purchases that weren't going to happen. No, we're good. Let's get on with it. Thank you for reading through this. For those just joining, that seems to be sort of like a meta character. They are meant to be the narrator, you know? Beyond the pockets of mist and hazes of blood at the end of the ever-repeating despair and grief. Ooh. Please come and witness the truth of the werewolf village with your own 2 eyes. You can see Sky and Ember on the camera right now. Ember's in the lower right corner of it. I adjusted that camera so that we could see more of the heating pad and canvas bridge area. 5/11, Sunday. Bright light. There is well, so far there's some over dramatic lines here, Tess. Closed in on the side of the road and killed the engine. It was steeper than I'd thought. My bike was on the verge of giving out, so I pushed down and deployed the kickstand. Let's check the options for opacity behind the text. Is there something for that? There we go. There we go. That'll help a little bit. Oh, I'm lost. Maybe taking a ride down an unknown road with no sat-nav on me wasn't such a good idea. You think? How are you doing today, Tess? I just followed the road, so I figured I wouldn't get lost, but now I was in trouble. No, cool it. It is. This isn't a big deal. I sighed, took note of the fact that I'd gotten lost in my pocket journal, and then pulled out a map. Weekends are sometimes like that. That end of the work week sleep drowsiness, you know. Suddenly, a rush of memories flitted into my mind. Apparently, you need key number 4 to go down that line. But forget it. Yeah, that concept really does remind me of the little terms in Beacon Pines, where unless you have a particular term, you can't go down a given branch. Somehow kept myself from remembering those things. Suppress those memories. Suppress them hard. After all, I'd gone on this trip to forget.
ああ、も
There is the implication of a bit of a time loop going on, Tass, in that the you can learn things of prior playthrough or from prior playthroughs that seem to allow you to make different choices. I don't know if that's just meant to be a you played long enough, here's a cookie kind of thing, or if it's supposed to be canonical. We'll have to see once we get some keys. But dead all along, they're in purgatory, they're in hell. Any number of those concepts are tropes that it's not unlikely that we could see. That is why that's why I'm never impressed when I hear people say, well, actually, it's supposed to be that they were in purgatory or in something like that the whole time and that this was a metaphor. It's like, yeah, whoop de doo.
やめやめ。
Enough of that. I gotta
目の前の
focus on
現
what's
実を
happening
直
right
視。
now.
人生は
If you
シン
folks
プル。
want, I can let
つ
them
まりこの道のごと
finish the
く
Japanese
真っ
lines
暗で
before I
道
read
案内
over
も
it.
なく進むか返すか考えることはそれだけ。
Interesting. I feel like I must have heard that at some point there, Tass, but it is a neat little bit of folklore there. The consequences of having multi-meaning symbols in your written language. Life is simple, just like this road. It's dark and there aren't any guides, but that means all you got to think about is whether you go forward or back. That's a grim outlook. Going back wasn't an option in this case, so I just moved forward. Why? You are lost, but you have a map, so presumably you can, backtrack. I guess. Why can't you backtrack? Is your motorcycle incapable of turning? Still, I wanted to know where I was at least, so I looked down at my map. It was all Greek to me. Last time I'd seen a sign, it was still light out, meaning I'd gotten lost after the sun had set. Sure, it was my own fault for guessing which intersections I'd be passing through, and that it had taken me 2 hours to conclude I was lost. This is a person who has no business traveling by road. Or traveling at all, really. Crazy to think that just 2 hours of aimless driving got me almost completely surrounded by mountains. Mountains just crept right up on him, leapt out. They extended as far as the eye could see. If you flipped the scenery upside down and shook it, it's unlikely even a shred of civilization would tumble out. Besides the asphalt below, my sweet ride, and the lamppost above, the first one in a while, mind you, there was nothing man-made here. The pocket map I had wasn't detailed enough for me to figure out where I was.
進むか。
I guess I'll keep driving. I think that kind of sums up his entire outlook is, I don't know where I'm going. Here's an intersection. Oh well, keep driving. I'd go as far as I could. Worst comes to worst, I could just jump at the side of the... I could just camp. Where did I see jump? Camp at the side of the road. Got that wanderer vibe. Somebody who's just like that's their life. They ride around and maybe do odd jobs, you know. 2 hours later, I deeply regretted ever thinking that. Basically, camping wasn't an option. This mountain road had no side to camp on. A dump truck I'd pass barely even fit on it. I'd also had my first close encounters with wild forest animals. I'd already seen 2 boars and 3 deer in those 2 hours alone. One of the deer had run parallel to my bike while intently staring at me. I had no idea what to think about that. I'd felt it could smell my fear and did it to just make it worse. How dare the thing do that to a human? We're the kings of this planet. I'd have to remember to eat some venison once I came back to civilization. This guy is kind of setting himself up to be an early victim in a horror movie, don't you think? Like, he's really absent-minded. He's gotten himself thoroughly lost, and he's doing a lot of things or saying a lot of things that reduce the empathy we might feel for them. Anyway, camping out here was a bad idea. I'd end up as either roadkill or animal food. And yet, I didn't back out. Why? Because I'm a pretty warped sort of guy, and I won't pretend otherwise. That was actually the reason why my once comfortable relationship had gone awry, and why I had gone on this stupid trip. Still, despite acknowledging that, I chose to keep moving forward. Just keep driving. Just keep driving. It wasn't like I'd find a place to stay if I went back. I mean, you could. You said there's no civilization apparent in the immediate area. Maybe going back the way you came would reverse that circumstance. I was actually starting to think that this experience might make a good conversation piece sometime down the road. It was really getting late at this point. Where would these roads take me, anyway? It'd probably be disappointing. Soon enough, the road became flat, and I was out of the mountain pass. The forest remained abundant, though, so I still didn't see much. Even so, the streetlights and signs were enough to make me feel I was again nearing civilization. Was streetlights the right expression for lights in a forest? I'd have to look that up. As the road grew less rugged, I realized just how exhausted I was. All this bike handling had left my hands really sore, too. That definitely would. Similar with steering wheel after a while is there's just enough tension holding the wheel steady or maneuvering slightly, holding your feet just so. It can be straining over a long period in a car, and a motorcycle would be even worse. I really had to rest. Suddenly I saw something unexpected. Powerful, colorful, artificial lights. A convenience store. Fresh Marca. I mean, market would make sense. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was next to an intersection between the road I was on and another, even thinner road that would probably support only a single car. The sea of trees ended, giving room for the majestic child of our consumerist society. Yep. Yeah, that was an exaggeration. Apparently, even a store was a big deal for someone who just stepped out of the wild. It was called Freshmark. I'd seen several of them a few times during the day. It was probably a local franchise. The building didn't look all that old. At least the parking lot looked a lot smoother compared to the roads. This was a pretty weird place to build something like that, though. Was I close to a settlement, or did they actually make a profit off of lost travelers? I just asked that or something. The local shopkeeper was bound to know what was around these parts, not to mention I was thirsty. I was welcomed by a weird chime sound. It looked like a normal convenience store. There were goods on the shelves, a counter on the left, and Oh, the worker at the counter was so mean looking it was scary. Immediate judgment. She was so imposing I wouldn't have doubted if someone told me she was in charge of some ladies' army corps. It's leaping to conclusions. Was that supposed to be a greeting? It was so cold it actually gave me chills. Was this store shadier than it appeared? Was I about to be stupidly overcharged? Was this how this place made a profit, by taking advantage of lost people and basically beating them out of their money? You know, you don't have to buy it. I mean, I guess maybe he's interpreting that literally. You know, the scary person is going to come over there and like give him a big pile of stuff and kick him until he goes to the counter and pays for it. That was scary. Clearly, the Wonderland had only just begun. I sure was excited for the beating. Well, we're learning more about our current narrator. I grew more nervous and less enthusiastic by the second. Make up your mind. You were just really looking forward to it, and then you started to back down, I guess. I braced myself, but she just looked down at a magazine in her hands. Oh, so she was just a slacker. That's two very different interpretations. She's like a semi-gangster who's going to beat me down and take all my money. Oh, no, she's just lazy. Slightly disappointed. Again, pick a lane. Do you want to get beaten? Are you relieved you're not going to get beaten? Or are you now disappointed that you won't get beaten? It was about what you'd expect. There was a small shelf of energy drinks, followed by some stationaries, travel goods, sanitary stuff, etc. Actually spelled out etc. It could be all of the above, Tass. There were sweets that came with toys, a shelf of cup ramen and dried food, a fridge, a freezer. It all looked normal. It was late, so the daily dish and packed lunch section was completely empty. The only special thing about this place was a section full of unpacked vegetables you'd expect to see at a greengrocer. Maybe all rural convenience stores were like this. I was slightly surprised by that. But there weren't any local fine foods or anything, so all in all, it was an unremarkable store. If you ignored the clerk, anyway. Like he really wants the clerk to be something, strange. Took a drink and brought it to the register. Yep, she really was the highlight of this place. What kind of clerk smokes while dealing with a customer? It's the kind of clerk that has to work in the middle of nowhere like this, I guess, You're actually buying? Yes, I was actually buying. She was the clerk, and I'd be her. Wow. Well, my opinion of this guy just plummeted further, if possible. She was the clerk, and I'd be her god, the customer. Our story is currently being narrated by Sir Karen. Right, Tass. This guy wants there to be drama and mystery. Real Karen vibes. Any minute he's gonna shout for her manager. How dare you smoke in front of me? I'm going to get you fired. Where's your manager? Give me your name.
126 円
She didn't even scan it. This exchange was at the mercy of the clerk. God is dead. His internal monologue is all over the place. Maybe I had to get mad at her. is a Karen.
ちょっといいですか
Can I ask something?
実は道に迷ってし
Kind of
まっ
lost
て
right now. I quickly... The writing for this guy is just all over the place.
町はどっちにあるでしょうか
It turned meek. Where can I find the nearest town?
あっち
There.
いや、できれば地図とか。
Don't you have a map or something?
ない
We don't. Man, this woman.
いや、そんなはずはないでしょ
I kind of want you to be the obligatory first kill that sets the
地図
tone.
は常備してるもんでしょ
Pretty much, Tass. He's just as offended of her behavior as he is offended that she's not more interesting. I'm not sure I believe that. Convenience stores often get asked for directions. You must have a map handy. You're lying to me.
ないもんはね
That a rule?
おとなしく
Well, we
来た
don't
道
have
通れ
one.
よ
Go back wherever you came from.
もう数
Been
時間
lost for a
迷って
few
るもん
hours
で
now. I don't think I can keep it up for much longer.
その辺の床で寝てけば
Sleep on the floor or something. She had to be joking.
いや、お気持ちだけでいいんで。
I appreciate the sentiment, but I'd rather be on my way. Are you sure you can't help?
ああもう
All right, just
せえ
wait.
な待ってろ
The clerk put out her smoke in the ashtray and went to the staff-only area. She came back in no time.
あったわ
Oh, we can see her eyes now. She does have a pretty judgy stare. Though given the guy's behavior, I think he's worthy of judgment. Average here. Found it. Oh, she did have a map. Of course she did. Even more ill-tempered than usual, the clerk started giving an explanation.
これがこの店
This here's the store.
十字路
Go to
北
the
へ
north
行
of
け
the crossroads.
うんうん。
Yes, I see.
しばらくしたら
You'll find an
陸橋がある
overpass soon enough.
渡れ
Cross it. When you come to it, the fork next to a giant boulder, turn right and head straight.
この道
On this road.
んだよ
What of it?
いや、
There's
この
nothing
先
there.
何も
書かれてねえだけで
There's a
集落
settlement.
があ
It's
ん
just
だ
not
よ
on the map.
うん。
You know
そこ
any
以外
other
なら
places?
富士吉村まで行くには峠道
There's
を
Fujiyoshi, but it's 2 hours through a mountain pass. This one's about 30 minutes away. Fujiyoshi seemed to be a village. It didn't look too far away, but the road leading to it was a huge branching mess. It was clearly just a paved mountain pass. I'd had enough of those for one day. I'd probably just get lost again.
じゃあ、こっち
I'll go to that one then. Thank you.
金
Money.
はい。
Excuse me.
払ってね
You
えだ
didn't
ろ
pay for the tea.
ああ。
Here's 500. Gets money from register, I suppose.
なぜ
Why did you put the change in the collection box without asking me?
小銭多いと
Having too
うぜえ
many
だろ
coins is a pain, ain't it? Was a hell of a line. I casually thanked her, grabbed the plastic bottle of tea, she didn't give me a bag, by the way, and left the store. Yeah, you've really got to hope that he's the first victim to introduce the monster and make everybody know it's deadly, don't you, Taz? You'd really expect him to be thinking in the back of his head, well, she's not getting a tip from me, and I won't be returning to this establishment in the future. I will be writing to corporate about this. And then the clerk blackjacks him. I drank the tea in the parking lot and looked up at the moon, obscured by clouds but still bright enough to outshine the light of the convenience store. The clerk put me in a bad mood, though, so I didn't enjoy the sight. I threw the bottle into a nearby trash can and aggressively drove away. He felt he was entitled to a plastic bag, Tess. It's not that he needed, it's that she deprived him of his plastic bag. Following the directions, I crossed the overpass and arrived at the first fork in the road. The byway she'd told me about was really narrow. I probably wouldn't have noticed it if it were not for the tall boulder standing there like a roadside shrine. A roadside shrine for some traveler deity. I mean, that the initial character is giving us hardcore Karen vibes does line up with raging. Turning carefully, I got on the road. A minute later, I found myself in an even worse wilderness than before. A veil of dead leaves covered the ground, tall grass sided the path, and the sky above was blocked by overgrown shrubs. I mean, they'd have to be really overgrown shrubs if they're blocking the sky. Has he been shrunken down? Made it feel like I was passing a wooden tunnel. The road itself was a huge red flag. It was a wonder why I didn't just turn around. No, it's not a wonder. You've already demonstrated that you have no sense of self-preservation, no sense of direction, and, no common sense whatsoever. The exchange from before might have pissed me off more than I thought. Dang, Clark not giving me a plastic bag. I'll show her I'm going to drive into the middle of this forest. Still, I really didn't expect the road to just end. She's, very clearly the clerk was like, well, I've had enough of this guy. Let's just send him off into the middle of the forest and see what happens. Happened about 15 minutes in. The view ahead suddenly turned strangely dark, and a split second later, the bike tipped forward. I reflexively hit the brakes, but it was too late. I started going down a cliff. My bike tilted downwards, and its suspension was put to the greatest test yet as we basically tumbled down to the bottom. The headlights suddenly shone on some dirt and grass. I knew that I'd be flung out of my seat. Stifling a scream, I tried to work some steering and brake magic to slow down without collapsing. But that was too big a task for a simple road bike. At the bottom of the cliff, it jumped higher than ever before. The suspension couldn't handle the impact, and I was launched into the air. A moment later, I heard a crash and felt an impact, after which came an unpleasant pain. Ow. An accident where I was flung out like that was a first for me. The launch was really something too. I did a 360 in the air and fell on my back. My breathing stopped for a moment, and the pain was so bad I thought all my bones shattered. My face and limbs seemed pretty fine at least, though I wasn't sure if that counted as a silver lining. There was grass under my hands. I felt it even through the gloves. That and the smell of green made it pretty clear what I landed on. 360 no scope, nice task. The the cartoon cartwheeling through the air, I pushed down, my hand sunk. The grass growth was pretty hefty. It was probably the reason why I came out relatively okay. He did describe that the surrounding area had a lot of leaf litter under it, so there could actually be a kind of a layer of mulching organic matter. All in all, rolling down a hill on a road bike like that would have been, and keeping it together until the very end is relatively impressive. Sure, my joints creaked when I stood up, but aside from that, I was fine. It was really dark, so I couldn't really confirm it, but I was pretty sure I wasn't even bleeding. My bike, however, wasn't nearly as lucky. Oh boy. It was lying on its side a short distance ahead. The engine was still on, the back wheel kept on turning, making an unpleasant fricative noise. Yep, it was busted. Walked up, killed the engine, and took the key. With the headlights off, I was surrounded by absolute darkness, so I just stood and waited until my eyes adjusted. Pause. I still couldn't see very clearly, but it looked like this actually wasn't a cliff. I was still on a road, it just wasn't paved beyond this point. I don't see how this couldn't have been a cliff. From the description of it, it doesn't seem like it would be safe to traverse on foot, on analog bicycle, let alone by car or truck. Maybe it's a one-way loop around the town. You get the near vertical drop to build up speed so that you can make it through the town as quickly as possible. Obviously, a road bike stood no chance against an unpaved road. That woman actually tried to kill me. I wonder why. You were so nice. You were a good customer. You were a good human being. Why would she try to kill you? Zigzagging through the trees, I followed the narrow footpath deeper into the forest. I tried getting my bike up and running again, but instantly gave up. It was partially stuck in the mud, so there was the risk of it slipping and getting me into another accident. You could walk with your bike, take it with you. Maybe I had to turn around. The moment I considered that, I saw a faint light ahead. If that woman wasn't lying, this road led to a settlement. Was I close? I reached into my jacket's pocket, took out my phone, and opened it up. As you'd expect, I was out of range. I ran the light app and shone a light to see better. Though weak, it was better than nothing. At the very least, it helped me watch where I was going. I had no idea how long I'd been walking for. But sure enough, I could see a light beyond the shrubs. It was weaker than expected. A flashlight, perhaps? I could hear water, too. Might have been near a river. Hello. I raised my voice. Hello, anyone there? Still, declaring my presence, I walked forward. It was late at night. Were I to bump into someone here, the scare would probably take away a few years of our lives. That was why I figured it was best for both to let the other know we were here before that happened. However, there was no response. Could they not hear me over the rapids? You are assuming that they're there. Hello, I shone my light ahead and realized I'd made it to an opening. Sure enough, there was a river, or a stream rather. I could see slightly more than I had while surrounded by trees. Straining my eyes, I could see a rocky river beach in the shallows. The light I'd seen was on the other side. From what I could tell, it was either a lantern or a flashlight, and it was close to the ground. I didn't see any people, though. No one responded to my shouting, either. I wasn't excited about it, but I decided to step into the water. That's a good choice. This man makes good choices. The cold water quickly soaked my shoes and socks. I could have taken them off, but I'd figured that crossing the river barefoot at midnight was a bad idea. But man, it was cold. Put my phone back into my jacket. I needed both hands free in case I fell. Not stopping or backing down, I walked towards the light. It suddenly became deeper. The water reached my knees now. That was too close for comfort. Feeling the bottom with my toes and balancing myself, I somehow avoided losing my footing. The flow was fiercer than I'd expected. If I slipped and fell, I'd probably be washed away. It suddenly hit me that I was doing something really weird, but it was too late to back down. That seems to be their attitude. Everything is like, well, can't change my decision now. We're just going to keep going. Despite having every opportunity to make a different decision at that point. You know, to turn back, to be nice, to do anything other than what they had decided on doing initially. Putting my hands on the boulder and carefully checking what I was stepping on, I gradually made it to the other side. Then, with an unpleasant wet sound in my every step, I walked up to the light. I could already see it clearly. Yep, it was a flashlight lying on the ground for some reason. Big old flashlight. There wasn't much space here. It was a narrow riverbank with a cliff right beside it. As you'd expect, I didn't see or sense anyone nearby. What the hell? Though old, the flashlight was working fine. The strength of the light told me the battery was pretty full. That meant that someone was actually using this tonight, or rather until a few moments ago. That was the most logical conclusion. It obviously wasn't left here yesterday afternoon or evening. We don't know the time period. It could be like an LED with a very high capacity battery. And yet, the user was nowhere in sight. I was near a river. Did something bad happen? Did the flashlight's owner step into the stream and get swept away? That was the most likely and worst possible scenario. Not everyone is as dumb as you. Not everybody's like, oh man, an icy cold river. Let's wade right into that for no apparent reason. However, the flashlight was left there practically buried in the pebbles. It didn't seem like someone placed it there to light things up. It was the dead of night. There was no way you wouldn't notice dropping your flashlight when it was so dark. Right, the fact that a light source was left in a place like this was strange by itself. With that considered, what was going on here? What if someone heard my stupid shouting and decided to lure me in with a light so that they could ambush me? Please cue sack overhead. Where would they attack from? Above? Okay. Once again, the running jump to conclusions happening here.
こんばんは。
Hello. I heard a voice the moment I looked up. The rock cliff was actually made up of several boulders. There was a face peeking from behind one of them.
こんばんは
Hello.
ああ、人だ。びっくりした。
Wow, a person. You surprised me. That was my line.
悪いんだけど、それ取ってもらえます？
Sorry, could you pick that up for me? The voice was feminine. I finally realized what was going on.
落としたってわけですか
So, you dropped this. I picked up the flashlight and pointed it at the source of the voice.
や
Yeah. The high-pitched voice, slender hands shielding the light. Sure enough, it was a young woman.
あ、眩しいな。
It is so bright.
失礼ちなみにこっちはこういうものですが
Sorry, this is me, by the way.
怖いです。下から照らさない。
That's creepy. Don't shine it up from below like that. Apparently, with the This is me, he held the light vertically under his chin, you know.
実は当方道に迷っており
I'm actually a bit lost.
だとすると割と究極的に迷ってますよ。
I think a bit is something of an understatement then. Yeah, I thought as much.
ここって人里です
Is this a settlement?
難しい質問だな。
That's a difficult question.
とりあえず助けてもらえないかと
Can you help me out at least?
助ける？
Help?
雨露しのげて野生動物がいなければ何でもいいんで
I just need a place to hide from the rain and wild animals, that's all. Processing. Standing on a boulder, the young woman made a pensive face.
じゃあうち来ます？
Want to come to my place? And that was the conclusion she'd arrived at. Her face told me she was 100% serious. Place. My place, by that. She surely meant a house, a settlement.
いいんです頼んどいてなんですが遠慮を忘れてすがりたい程度には切羽詰まってるんですが
Can I? I know I asked for help and all that, but I'm actually desperate enough to not hold myself back.
男として？
That was a phrasing for him to use and a conclusion for her to leap to. As a man,
ええいや違う一個の生命として数時間迷った挙句バイクでこけて心身ともに限界ってわけです
yes, I mean no, as a living being. I spent the last few hours aimlessly driving around, only to fall off my bike. I'm dead tired and at my wit's end here.
あらら。なら見捨てるのもどうよって感じじゃないです？一個の生命として。
Oh dear, then what kind of living being would I be if I just abandoned you? And so I was saved. Oh, the beauty of living beings looking out for each other.
じゃあ手いいです？
Anyway, your hand, please.
ん
Aw,
ここ一人じゃ登れないでしょ？
can't climb up on your own, yeah? True. Honestly, I didn't even realize I'd have to. Meeting another person filled me with relief, which was followed by a sudden wave of fatigue. It wasn't crippling, though. She extended her left hand, so I grabbed it with my own left. Her slender fingers were stronger than expected. The girl's name was Chiemi Sarazawa. I asked if she was related to the Shinsengumi guy, but she said that her family just adopted the name at some point in the Meiji period. She was a 21-year-old who went to a college far away from here. This was her hometown, and she was spending her post-exams vacation here. We chatted about stuff like that once she'd led me out of the rocky ravine. There was actually a proper path, so the rock climbing was pretty pointless, but I was too focused on my footing to comment. She told me about herself as soon as we reached solid ground.
ちなみにそちらは？
And what about you?
名前は久石春明東京で大学院生やってます
I'm looks like Haruaki. Seems like one of those ones that would have like a truncation in the syllables. So Haruaki Fusaishi. A graduate student in a Tokyo college.
じゃあちょっと年上。
Ah, so you're a bit older.
24だから芹沢さんと3つ違いかな
24, so three
同世代でしょ。
3 years. I'd say we're in the same age range.
ちえみでいいですよ。敬語とかもいらないです。
Yeah, so don't you dare be formal with me.
じゃあ僕も呼び捨てタメ口がいいな
Alright, then you can be casual with me too.
ですか？
Can I really?
女の子に親しくされてるみたいで嬉しいからね
Ah, a Karen and a creeper. He likes it when girls are friendly to him.
なるほど。 実は私も堅苦しいの苦手なんで、じゃあ遠慮なく。
Laugh. Well, I know what you mean. I don't like stiff socializing either. Sure, I'll treat you like a friend.
どうぞどうぞ。ちなみにまだ結構遠い？
Wouldn't have it in either way. That aside, are we there yet? He's terrible.
そうでもないかな。もう5分くらい頑張りましょい。
Not quite. We're like 5 minutes away. Hang in there, Chief. I mean, I get, he's bruised up and he's tired, but he's hardly met her, and you can tell she's already like, okay, cool your jets. What a lively girl. You could tell she was used to people.
ただ足元に気をつけて、明かりだけ見て。
I mean, it was very shortly into his introduction that we went from speculating if he would die first to hoping that he will die first. So watch your step and focus on just the light.
何かあるの？
Any reason?
この辺石ころだらけで危ないんだ。
There are loads of pebbles here. It's dangerous. The moment she said that, I stumbled on a rock too big to be called a pebble.
あと今夜はずいぶん暗いしね。
And it's pretty dark tonight. I couldn't even see the moon anymore. Nodding in agreement, I focused on following the light in her hand.
ちょっと待っててもらえます？着替えちゃうんで。
I gotta change. Wait here a sec. Got the look of one of those like stacked apartment complexes, the kind you'd see portrayed with like a metal walkway with stairs up the layers. So exterior with some roof covering that you walk up the side, and the apartments are effectively stacked blocks. And so I did just that. Oh, wrong button. Given this was a mountain settlement, I'd expected some old wooden house, but she actually lived in an apartment block. Why are you sneezing so much, Ember? You get sick too. All the other cats are having a vet checkup on Tuesday. Ideally, get them all a clean bill of health and get their insurance rolling. It was too dark to get a good look at it. All I could see were the cheap-looking walls, like you'd expect from some old boarding house for students. Also, she lived on the second floor in room 202. I'd heard some raindrops as we were climbing the rusty stairs, but now it was really pouring. Between that, the darkness, and the large tree right next to the building, it was nearly impossible to see what was going on outside. It felt like I was all alone in a world of nothing but the walls, the door, and the fluorescent lamp above my head. It made me feel somewhat helpless. I distracted myself from that by imagining her changing. He really is a creeper. Wow, this guy's awful. Did the author think this was a good character and that we would be like, yes, I'm on board with this guy. This is clearly somebody that I can, use to immerse myself into the story as a personal narrator. Or did they actually intend to write them as like, yeah, this guy's terrible? Eventually, the door opened up.
お待たせ。上がって。
Sorry about the wait. Come in. All smiles, she showed herself, now wearing sports clothes. This was kinda exciting.
なんにもないでしょ。
Look at this place. It's completely empty, huh?
何にもないね。
I don't know if we're going to be able to easily go on with this game if this person isn't murdered super hard.
で
Yep.
も冷蔵庫の中はほら
Or at least we get to follow somebody else than him. But get a load of what's in the fridge.
素晴らしい。
飲み
Magnificent.
ますか
Let's drink.
やったぜ。
Please shift to an image and not a black screen. Let's see. We have DM Lemon something. Lemon CHU, and there's a letter after it. And then it's a 4-letter word, like TO something something beer. And the TO something beer has almost what looks like a gas mask over a kind of police badge looking symbol. Huh. Her place was really empty. It was a small room with a low table in the middle, a fridge near the door, and a large duffel bag deeper in. There were 2 old-looking bookshelves too, but they were completely empty. I wasn't bothered, though. It's so terrible. He's so terrible. Wasn't bothered one bit, though. Any girl's room was a wonderland to me. I don't think we have to speculate what kind of trouble he had in his prior relationship that sent him wandering the roads. He was kicked out of his relationship, likely with enough velocity that he didn't have to build up speed on his motorcycle.
じゃあ大変だった春明さんにお疲れ様
Anyway, you went through some big trouble, so I'll drink to
地
you.
獄で出会った仏様に乾杯。
I'll drink to you for helping out. You're a real saint. We opened up our cans, knocked them together, and downed them. It was actually good. The pleasant bitterness and the refreshing carbonation made for a good combo.
おいしいこのためだけに生きてる
She likes her beer. So good, I live for this.
その若さでそれはないでしょ
Come on, you're too young to say
言い
that.
過ぎた愛や将来にもまだ絶望してません
Right, I'm not despairing for my future or love life yet. Why are you speculating on your love life? That wasn't prompted.
う。ところが、
You heard that? That's the sound of job hunting. It's a coming here fast.
いややめてせっかくのビールがまずくなる
Don't say that, you'll ruin my beer. She laughed and took a huge sip. It was pretty clear she could hold her drink. That aside, something really bothered me.
お誘いに乗っておいてなんだけ
This
ど。
might be a bit late for this, but can I ask you something?
何
Go ahead. Her cheeks were already red. Maybe she didn't handle her liquor as well as I thought. She had a well-featured face, and I didn't think it was wrong to consider her beautiful. Sure, her clothes weren't... Oh, boy. Kill this man. Please. Switch main characters. Sure, her clothes weren't the least bit sexy, but you could tell she had some makeup on.
僕は完全に正体不明の自称迷い人だよね。
Is he gonna hit on her? I'm concerned that he's gonna hit on her. Oh, are we gonna have to switch games this fast? I'm just some stranger who says he's lost,
そ
right?
うね
Yup.
君は年頃の女性。
And you yourself are a young woman who invited that stranger into an enclosed space and started getting
その
drunk.
上アルコールまで入ってしまった。
There's nowhere good this is going.
おお
Oh?
身の危険を
Don't
感
you
じたり
think
と
this
か
is
は
dangerous?
うーん
Hmm. She kept gulping the drink even as she formulated a response. The very fact that I could just watch her do that made this a pretty risky situation. And yet,
あんまりないかな。
I wouldn't say so.
それは
But
芹沢千恵美クイズ
time for a quiz.
イエーイ。
問題。
Here's the
ふと
question.
気づいたら低層が瀬戸際にもかかわらず芹沢千恵美は特に身の危険を感じない。なぜでしょう。
Here's the question. My virginity is threatened. Yet I don't feel like I'm in danger. Why? What a fun girl. This only made me like her more, increasing the danger even further.
質問 OK?
Am I allowed to ask questions?
どうぞ。
Sure.
僕のことがいい
Can I just assume it's not because I look like a good guy?
悪い人に見えるってわけじゃないけど。まあ
Well, I
確
don't
か
think
な
you look like a bad guy, but no, I doubt you're good either. You look experienced with women, for one. What does that look like? That unintentional compliment showed that she actually did see me as a potential danger.
考えられる回答は大きく2つ。想定外だが何
There
が
are
起
two
きても
types of
問題
answers
ない
to this. Either you expect nothing bad to happen, but wouldn't be bothered if it did, or you actually want something to happen. We'll continue with this for a little bit longer, but this character is becoming a bit intolerable. Kind of disappointing, actually, because it didn't seem like, based on all of the media surrounding the game, without looking into spoilers, that it did not seem like that's what we were in store for. Though, if this is a horror feature, if we were going by a American horror, again, this would be setting up this guy to be killed swiftly and brutally.
ふむ
前者は
I can think of several situations for the former. For example, you're on the edge and don't care what happens. Or maybe you're just confident you can defend yourself. Maybe you know martial arts and can easily kick my
僕な
ass.
んか軽く乗せるとかね。
Hopefully, she'll just kick his ass.
ああ論理的
So logical. Let me guess, you're a scientist.
まあ
I guess
そ
you
うか
could
な
say that. Now, for the latter, if you intend for something to
例
happen,
え
then
ば私がエロエロですとか
you think I'm a thirsty perv or something. Talk about not mincing words.
酔っ払ってきたな
I blame the booze, so what else is there?
他には何があるでしょう
Indeed, what other reason could a woman have to bring a stranger to her home? It would surely be something not non-standard,
僕の
like,
存在が
you want to use me somehow.
例えば
For example, setting me up as an alibi.
君
I
が
could
ここにい
be
たと
useful to you by attesting that you were here.
おおちゃっかり利用するわけだ
That's so shrewd.
あるいは
Or maybe you're a serial killer who brought me here just to get me drunk and kill me. Please. Please let it be that, because that will be the end of this character and we can move on to somebody that isn't terrible.
はあヤマンバ
So I'm some evil mountain witch now. Sounds great. I'll kill you real good. Splosh, splosh. Huh. It's an onomatopoeia I'm not familiar with. Splosh. Well, I mean, this is the one sensible thing the narrator has said. What kind of sound effect was that?
ちなみに
By the way, you forgot another case.
あれ抜け
I
てた
did.
うん
Yep, I could just be a really good person who simply wants to help you.
助けてあげたい一心だっていうケース
Pause. Oh, that had never occurred to me. Is it time for me to be ashamed of my filthy mind? Yes. It has long since been time for you to be ashamed of your filthy mind.
いやでも
But
それ
wait,
で自分が
is
襲わ
that
れ
really
るかも
important
って
enough to
考えたら
risk being assaulted?
わあ襲うって
Oh,
言
you're
っちゃったよ
thinking
この人
so you're thinking of assaulting me.
あ
I'm just talking in general, you know, the cliche scenario. She stopped talking and turned red. It was so cute, I thought she was actually doing it on purpose. Man, she was drunk. We were just on our second cans.
うーん
How
じゃあ
about
こう
this?
いうのは
If I don't let you stay here, something even worse would happen and I'd feel real bad. Care to elaborate?
この辺りにはこ
There's some scary wild animals around here. You might have gotten torn up and eaten. That had left a bad taste in my mouth, so I figured I'd just let you stay instead.
なるほど。
I see, so you're balancing risk and goodwill. I didn't expect that.
想定外か。この人だいぶ悪い人なんじゃないかって気がしてきたな。
Really now? You got any idea how much of a bad guy you seem now?
そう
I do.
だって
I mean, you assumed I was a thirsty perv, a serial killer, or needed an alibi before considering I was just a nice person. That line summarizes why it's kind of painful dealing with the main character at the moment.
ヘロエロは君が言い出したんでしょうが。
You're the one who brought up the perv thing.
そうだったっけ？
Details, so what's the right answer?
これって
Huh? We're not just messing around?
正解者には素敵なプレ
Get
ゼン
it
ト。
right and I'm giving you a nice present. Get it wrong and you're dead. Splosh, splosh. Seriously? Key 20 apparently gives you another choice. I'm assuming it's this fourth one. You'd feel guilty if you let me die.
ピンポーン。正解
You're right.
です。
Oh, cool. Not oh, cool. She just implied that if she hadn't brought you in, you'd have been torn apart by animals. You should not be taking that like a, oh, that's nice, I guessed correctly.
まあ実際この辺
Well, I wasn't joking when I said this area is dangerous. There's deer, boars, wild dogs, and bears.
鹿とイノシシは実際見たけど、熊
I
も
actually
犬
saw
も
deer and boars myself, but bears?
うん。
Yep, moon bears, though. They aren't big, but they do attack. It's pretty dangerous out there.
なんてワイルドな。
That's just
で
wild.
も本当にヤバい動物は他にいる
But there's something even worse.
なんだろ
Worse than bears?
ヘビ、猿、カラス。
Snakes, monkeys, crows, spiders. Were they venomous or something? I really doubted that. Those really didn't seem to be worse than bears.
あと
Also wolves.
う。日本には狼はいないでしょ
There aren't any wolves in Japan.
いるかもよ。
Yes, there are. You're in the sticks, you know. I mean, the fact that this is supposed to be about werewolves implies, a particular sort of wolf. She smiled and drank out of the third can.
まあ理由がどうあれ、まんまと美女宅に侵入を果たした春明さんは自分が狼になっちゃうのかな。
Huh. So moon bears are real then, Tacitus? Speaking of wolves, whatever the reason, you ended up coming into a pretty girl's home. Won't you become a wolf yourself?
やめとく。
Nope.
紳士
What a gentleman. Have another one. Wasn't too sure, but I felt like she dodged the subject. Perhaps I wasn't being cautious enough. But then again, I'd been wandering aimlessly for a long time by now. I had enough recklessness in me to enjoy sharing a drink with a cute, if shady, girl. She is not the shady one in this interaction. The next day. The last thing I remembered was our little, when was the last time you pissed yourself while sleeping? Talk. I had to tell her about the time I got so drunk I wet my pants in the middle of the boarding house. She laughed so hard she started frothing at the mouth and passed out. I was not aware that that was a risk when laughing was involved. Interesting. So they have little crescent moon shapes on their chest and longer ears than normal. Huh. Are they actually bears? Because I know a lot of times you'll get animals that have variable appearances that are named one thing, but they are actually not that animal at all. Interesting. I woke up with a splitting headache. Oh man, morning already. Light poured in through the frosted window. Pulled out my phone and checked the time, 7 in the morning. I'd gone to sleep somewhere between 2 and 3, which probably wasn't quite enough sleep. At least I didn't wake up to some horror movie scene. The building wasn't in ruins and the girl wasn't actually a skeleton. Though, in a way, this might have been worse. She was spread out on the floor on the other side of the mini table. Her breathing was a mix of some weird gurgling sounds. I hesitantly looked at her. The saint that had saved me from the hell I was in last night, had puked in the middle of her sleep. What was I supposed to do here? As a guest, I couldn't really be too harsh on her.
ちえみちゃん
Jimmy,
ひゅ
she wasn't waking up. Well, I'd just do what little I could. There, that should be good enough. I'd used a ton of toilet paper to clean up her mess and flush it down the toilet. It left a stain on the floor. The little starting narration that was begging us not to play the whole game on stream, and just the initial plot line, did mention reading too many lines and hurting our throat. Let me get another sip of beverage here. Left a stain on the floor, but it was dirty to begin with, so whatever. I'd even wet a towel and cleaned her face, even then she showed no signs of waking up. Some of it was on her hair and clothes, but I figured it was best if she took care of that herself.
ちえみちゃん
朝
The first hint of consciousness so
ちょっ
far
と
today.
出ておくから
I'll be leaving for a bit. Without waiting for a response, I walked to the entrance. She'd have to take a shower and change and all that, so I'd kill time outside. I stepped into my still damp shoes with bare feet. My socks were in the washing machine with the towel she gave me to wipe my legs, and reached for the doorknob. I opened the door and was greeted by a gust of wind. The raindrops gathered on the leaves of the tree next to the building. The raindrops gathered on the leaves of the tree next to the building flew right into my face, making me grimace. The rain from last night was already over. The sky was pretty clear, but despite that, I noticed the visibility of my surroundings was poor. The building was surrounded by leaves. The old structure was basically buried in a forest of trees about as tall as itself. There were branches poking into the exposed hallway. It almost felt like they'd reach out and grab me if I wasn't careful. I kind of felt like I was in an overgrown room. I turned around and saw the room and Chiemi just as I left them. Yep, it was all real. This is normally not something you have to keep double checking, like, am I in the middle of a fictional story? Could this be like a horror movie come true? I think you're breaking the fourth wall, sir. There were other rooms in this building, which made me wonder if they were occupied. Oh, I wondered the same thing about the area in general. It's almost like he's incredulous that there could be, towns outside of cities, I pushed the branches aside to see if there were other buildings nearby. Suddenly, something entered my vision. This is the character that was narrating during the tutorial, as if They kind of describe them as sort of the storyteller, like a meta character. It didn't feel right. Something that shouldn't have been there. What is this rural you speak of? What nonsense. Exactly, Tass. Houses this close to trees? Surely this is not real. The leaves I moved revealed a woman clad in curious clothing. The moment I recognized her as such, she opened her closed eyes. Did our eyes meet? Another strong wind. I shielded my face from the spray of raindrops. When I looked outside again, the woman was nowhere in sight. Was that an illusion? Is he hallucinating? If not, then what? What kind of place was this? It could have been a real Hicksville, a marginal village, a bunch of actual ruins, or an illegal settlement. A real Hicksville. I had some theories, but I set them aside for now. This guy seems to live and breathe judgment. Circling back around to our impression of a primal Karen in motorcyclist form. Seems like a place worth exploring, regardless. I went down the stairs and found no sign of the woman, or anyone else for that matter. A short distance away from the building, I turned around and sure enough, it was pretty much covered in trees. I mean, ultimately, this would be kind of a nice setup, aside from the, trees are pretty. Perspective, a lot of canopy like this would cool the place down quite a bit. You wouldn't get that sort of urban oven scenario going on. I went to the place where I saw the woman. There were footprints in the glass here. In the glass. In the grass here. Maybe I'd find her if I followed them. Yep, that's right, casemate. Also, welcome aboard. We are finally getting into Raging Loop. Substantial misgivings given the behavior and internal monologue of what appears to be the main character right now. It's kind of painful having to cohabitate with the thoughts of such a skeezy fellow. Sammy has approached. Behold. He's gonna loaf up there. They led me to an open area. Oof. Like Tess was mentioning, kind of a sleepy day. It was unused, but it looked like someone was trying to do something with it. Was it supposed to be a construction site? Even if it was clearly abandoned. There were large rocks and lots of sediment near a prefab. From what I could tell, there had been a giant landslide which forced them to stop construction. The fact that plant growth was still minimal meant that it had happened fairly recently. The footprints seemed to be going down the hill next to the site. Following them, I finally saw something that could be called civilization, in quotes. There's a set of paddy fields with houses nearby. So this actually was a settlement. What a relief. The civilization in quotation marks when he referred to what amounted to a farming community. I decided to keep following the footprints and approach the settlement. I came across another unpaved road that was clearly used by people and cars. You can tell by the complete lack of tire tracks or, trodden down vegetation, leaving bare areas. It was lined with weeds and bushes reaching up to my waist. It was home to caterpillars and grasshoppers, among other things. Spiders were no exceptions. There were no shortage of insects there, so it was a good place for a net. I wasn't particularly scared of spiders, but I didn't like them either. At least they were just harmless orb weavers. What was it? I heard some news recently. I don't know if it was a recent event or just somebody recounting an event that had occurred. But there was a factory where everyone had been told to be careful when they were working and that it was still perfectly safe, despite the fact that an orb weaver spider infestation got so bad that the entire factory was essentially covered in webs. Like the entire place had been netted over. All right, casemate. Thanks for swinging by. Regardless, I avoided these bushes just in case and followed the path like the good city boy I was. At least he acknowledges the fact that he's acting like a definite urbanite, you know? There was a large boulder surrounded by grass. It was strangely tall, making it look like it was put there by people. Why does the size of it seem unusual or an indication that people put it there? Wouldn't that generally be the opposite? Like, oh man, it's such a big rock. Surely somebody wouldn't have moved it into this sort of overgrown area. On its dewy surface, there was a gray tree frog, ready to go after the many insects scattered around. I walked a bit further and came across a house with a small field nearby. The field's location made it safe to assume it belonged to the inhabitants. If there were inhabitants anyway, I couldn't see anyone. And just like always, there was grass everywhere. There was another boulder standing next to the house. This one was obviously placed there by human hand. What was the point? Was it a monument or something? The footprints continued into the field. The wet mud on the field was full of small, young, but healthy-looking rice plants. If you ignored the standing boulders in the area, the place looked like a normal farming village. I was both relieved and worried at the same time. From what I saw, there weren't any other buildings beside the ones in the settlement. Everything beyond was just mountains, meaning that this place was completely isolated. And I was a complete outsider. Of the few coherent thought paths this guy has gone down. There was no way things would go well if I ran into a random local and then right off the trail again. Like, oh man, it's totally isolated and I'm an outsider. That's a reasonable assumption. People could be suspicious of you. They could be they could be very socially isolated. There's no way things would go well if I ran into some random local. Okay, see, now you're going a bit far. I belatedly crouched to hide, and he goes further. Belatedly crouched to hide myself a bit, going into stealth mode. It was probably best for me to go back. Chiemi might have been looking for me. Suddenly, I heard a sound. I looked for its source and found a speaker on a wooden utility pole in the middle of a small plaza. Hey, morning broadcast. Never heard this tune before. It was cheerful at first, but had some parts that seemed really dark. I found it unsettling. Perplexed, I stopped walking, and what happened next made me hide myself. There was a person in the area densely surrounded by houses. But they weren't normal. What was with that appearance? I mean, they weren't normal. It would... The fact that he said they weren't normal as opposed to they were dressed in a strange fashion or something like that. What was that on her face? I mean, is it the fact that she was elderly that made him say they weren't normal? It's the sort of terrible thing I would expect of this person. Though I was a fair distance away, I could see an old woman with some sort of cloth over her face shakily walk out from between the buildings. Oddly enough, there were boulders even there. But even weirder was the fact that she walked up to one of them, lightly joined her hands, and bowed her head before it, her face still hidden. Then all was silence. It actually looked like she was revering it. To me, it looked like she was praying to it. This was bad, really bad. I'd wandered into a settlement with a unique culture, to put it lightly. I think another way to phrase that is that, I've wandered into a group of heretic foreigners or similar. These heathens are probably going to hurt me. Oh. He's got one of those Facebook groups where they very frequently, preface some of their posts with, "I'm not racist, but..." Forget causing trouble. An outsider like me could get killed here. I just turned around and ran for it. We've got a subtle heartbeat here. He's going to run back to Chiemi and be like, "I ran as fast as I could. I was afraid for my life. Why? I saw an old woman." Past the house, through the construction site, until I arrived back at the apartment building. Chiemi looked like a relatively reasonable person. Maybe she could tell me what was up. It just hit me that the way she described this place was somewhat weird. She basically said it wasn't normal.
あるいはちえみちゃんが恐るべき殺人鬼で
Or maybe you're a serial killer.
はあ、ヤマンバいいね。ブッシュブッシュ殺しちゃう。
I mean, I don't see anything said about the community. It's you had proposed the fact that she was a serial killer, and she's like, "Oh, she meant is like Yamamba or something like that." If I recall, that is a type of mountain witch. Like that's like translated as something like that. There is actually I thought for a while it might still be a thing that there was a fashion trend that was referred to like that, where it was like getting a heavy tan or a heavy artificial tan, very light lip makeup, blonde hair, that kind of thing. I believe that is supposed to be the basis for the old Pokemon Jinx. The Pokemon that was color shifted heavily at some point because of how that ended up looking, given that they decided to go for black for the dark skin. No way. What if she was actually the bait they used to lure outsiders here? Like, as long as we don't have to hear his internal monologue going like white panel van creepy, it is strangely amusing to hear this guy being like, "Oh man, there's some sort of farming community. They're definitely gonna murder me in my sleep for being an outsider from the city." Eventually, the broadcast stopped. Chiemi still hadn't come out of her room. She didn't respond even when I knocked or called out to her. I didn't have to worry about this, right? That just made my inexplicable unease grow worse. What if this was a trap? Was I in a dangerous situation? I had to talk to her. If she was a normal person anyway. Maybe my best option was to run away right now. Yes, blindly charge into the forest, supposedly home to many dangerous animals. Do it. Maybe we'll get to shift main characters. I wouldn't know where to run. I couldn't remember the path we'd taken here. Though I was pretty sure we'd went uphill, so maybe I had to go down? If I avoided the settlement and went back to the mountain stream, I could escape by following the wild roads. The wild roads that you had described when looking at the map as branching off everywhere and that you might get lost. That was my best option, even with the difficulties considered. Or was that the other road? I don't know. The way he described the roads on his way here, they were effectively just glorified wildlife path kind of things. And even the way he described the road that was well traveled when he was looking through the village, that was just a glorified wildlife trail. Thankfully, I'd taken my bag with me. I took out a 5,000 yen note and put it in Chiami's newspaper box. It was payment for last night's beer. That's like less than $50 or more than $50, somewhere in the $50 range. You know, translating yen into freedom units. The moment I turned around to take my leave, the door in the next to the room next to the staircase opened slightly with a creak. Saw an eye glaring at me through the gap. Shriek! Her high-pitched scream pierced my eardrums. I screamed too, scared, and ran for it. Suddenly, I stepped onto the wet hallway floor at a bad angle. I fell. Thud, thud, thud. Somebody else. Who's this old guy? Who are you, and are you all right? A reasonable-sounding voice prompted me to shake off the pain and raise my head. There's a pair. There were two boys in formal-looking school uniforms. Always puzzled by the stereotypical Japanese school uniforms, the very militaristic, almost like military uniform-looking boys' school uniforms, and the even setting aside the anime portrayals of them with a skirt that is only technically a skirt, but the very very feminized female ones. This is a blouse and a long skirt and ribbons and whatnot. Often described as like not having options for warm or cold weather. And the boys' uniforms not having good, I think having better options for like warm weather. And better for cold weather, but very different mentalities designed by very different people. Are you all right? He repeated the question. I was just startled, and then slipped, and then fell down the stairs. You're friends with, effectively with Sister Chiami.
ちえみちゃんのことか。
You mean Chiami? Are you friends of hers from college? She didn't tell us anyone was visiting. Oh, that look. That look. Person on the right has suddenly become very suspicious of us. Oh, I just got into some trouble and she helped me out. There's nothing shady about me. Though I know that's hard to believe. No, don't worry. There's nothing suspicious about me. I am normal. I am normal.
怪しいな、おっちゃん。
It really is, old man.
どうすればいいのかな。
How do I handle this?
とりあえず
Anyway, my name's
名前は
Haruaki
久石春明と
Fusaishi.
僕は織部安永です。こっちは鴨志田千代の
Yasunaga Oribi. Oribi? This is Chikamochi Kamoshida.
モッチーだ。
This mochi is fine. Cute. Good to know. If I called him that, maybe he'd stop calling me old man. I was only 24.
それでこっちが
And this is Haru-chan. What are you doing?
だって知らない人が。
We don't know him. Apparently this Haru-chan was the person who looked at me through the gap in the door and screamed. Okay, the third person. There was a third person.
とりあえず大丈夫そうだから。
He
出ておい
seems
で。
safe. Come out. A moment later, she slammed the door shut, and after a few moments of hesitation, opened it again. Well. She's got a lot of flair. Drink of water. Definitely the suspicious sort. Whoa. She looked like a student too, except her fashion sense was exceptionally flashy. She's got one of the kind of armbands that are sometimes things like student council things, that kind of stuff, but it's a nice purple and black checkered pattern. 2 different wristbands, a couple of pins. I don't know if the kind of pink tartan or plaid belt would be part of the outfit or uniform.
あなた、
Who
誰
are
です？
you?
久石春明と言
Yeah.
って
Introduce yourself. I crashed my motorbike nearby, and Chiemi Sarazawa-san helped me out.
それって
You saying you spent the night in her room?
Ah.
Yeah, I did. Cut my words short with an ear-piercing
一人
shriek.
で騒がしかったと思った。
So that's why it was so noisy. What were you noisy? What were you thinking? You're not supposed to enter an unmarried girl's room. It's indecent.
ああうん
Wow, she leaps to conclusions as fast as he does. Maybe she'd be a better part of the couple with him. I was hesitant too, but Chiemi-chan was kind enough to let me
ちえ
in.
みちゃん、慣れ慣れしい。それじゃあ
You're acting like you've known her your whole life.
精霊が出てこない
Wait, she's not getting out. Don't tell me
ド
you...
アに5000円挟んであるじゃん。
There's a 5,000 yen note in the door. And she shrieks again. Don't tell me you...
違う違う単に
She gave me lots of booze. I'm paying back for that. They're assuming there was a transaction of an indecent sort made.
ちえねえの体が5000円ってそんな安いわけないでしょ。
His body's worth way more than that.
ただれてるな。
Oh, dissolute. I don't get the phrasing. What were these kids saying?
ああ君助けてくれな
Hey,
いか
can you help me out?
初対面で女性の部屋でお酒を飲んだんですか？
Yeah, he's looking real
そして知恵は
suspicious.
出てこない。
You drank with a girl you just met, and she's not coming out. I had no allies here.
一体何事？
What's going on? And so the subject of the conversation joined in.
おおちえみちゃん君からも事情を説明
Can you tell them what happened last night? Something was off about her aura. What happened to the lively girl she'd been yesterday? Pause.
知恵ねえまさか
Did you...
難しいとこを見られちゃった。
Man, this is embarrassing.
いやちょっと待ってちょっと
Wait, hold on, stop.
もう嫁いけない。
I can't be a bride anymore. They always describe her cries as ear-piercing, so it's probably meant to be even more high-pitched than the voice actor did for her. What a mess. Though Chiami's face was all pale, she was actually grinning. She obviously had a bad hangover, but that didn't stop her from messing around. After calming everyone down, Chiami explained what actually happened. How we met in the middle of the night, how she let me stay out of goodwill. How we drank ourselves silly, and how nothing happened between us.
いやー、久々に深酒しちゃって思いっきり入っちゃったよ。
And it's been so long since I drank that much. Guess I wasn't prepared for it and puked it out. Sorry you had to see that.
ああ、いや、それはいいんだけど。
I don't mind it. That Haru-chan girl still looked at me funny. I do appreciate that the art is consistent in style and expressive. Like, we're getting a lot of emotion out of their faces.
非常識
Absurd.
ああ、うん。申し訳ない。
Anyway, sorry. I was so tired yesterday that I couldn't refuse her kindness.
まあ知恵ねえだしな雑把だよな
Well, this is Chiami we're talking about. She does whatever she wants.
事情も事情だし年寄りたちも納
He's
得
got good reasons for being here, too, so maybe the elders will understand.
ちなみに会ったのってどこです
Where did you find him, anyway?
それはね。
下の方の
Well,
河原だよ。
next to the river further down. My words made everyone change their expressions. Let's see, we've got Mochi there on the left, not seeming to be happy about it. Almost like a disappointed look from the middle one, and then a little bit of shock on the right. Oh, and we can see more of her outfit now. They've all got kind of a school uniform look. But the thing over her shoulder looks like a little, like a canteen with a cartoon bunny character on it.
それはちょっと
That's a bit
大騒ぎだ
a big deal.
2日連続で2人もだなんて
Two people over 2 days. Okay, so there was a prior person. Bunny booze. It's a booze flask, brought to you by Sanrio, huh?
もしかしてまずいこと言った？
Did I say something bad?
はあ、まあいずれバレることよ。さっきあれだけ大騒ぎしちゃったから休みず中に知れちゃったろうし。
It was going to get out sooner or later. We made quite a scene, so I wouldn't be surprised if everybody in Yasumizu already knows.
君、2日連続で2人もって何のこと？
What do you mean by 2 people over just 2 days?
触らないで
Don't touch me, you're filthy. Wasn't trying to touch her, and I wasn't filthy. Sure, I hadn't had a bath in over a day, but still.
君、何が騒ぎになるの？
Hey you, why is it a big deal?
タエバあたりが拒否ってなる
Aiba's gonna scream. Well, that sure sounded
詳
bad.
しい話を聞かせてくれない？
Can you tell me more?
ちょっと説明は難しいんですけどまあここは田
It's
舎
a
なんで
bit complicated. For now, just keep in mind that this is the countryside. Things are different here than in the city. This guy here was Oribe-kun. Ignore Chiemi, and he was the easiest person to talk to.
どうすればいいかな？
Oribe? Probably Oribe. What should I do?
まあちえみがなんとかしましょう。学生諸君は
Just leave it to
とり
me,
あえずご飯
alright?
行かないと
And it's time for students to eat, isn't it?
この混乱には乗るっきゃない
But I want to see where this mess goes.
乗るっきゃなくないもっち。とり
No,
あえ
you
ず行
don't.
っちゃいな。
Just go already. We'll catch up.
まあちょっと時間ずらした方がいいよ
I
ね
best...
揉めそうだし
Well, I guess it's best to go separately. There's probably going to be some disagreements.
さすがやすくん、察しがいいぞ。
I knew
ご
you'd
めんけど
understand,
二人の
Yasukun.
森よろしくね。
Take care of them for me, alright?
うん
もう
Sure.
知恵ね 子供扱いはやめてよ。
Stop treating me like a child.
そうだ、うんこしてやるぞ。
Yeah, no.
ほらほら行くぞ、モッチーにハルちゃん。
Let's just get going, you two. And so the students walked off towards the stairs. It was kind of easy to tell what sort of relationship they had. Anyway,
彼らがこの建物の他の住人？
so they live in this building too.
そういうこと。学生寮だからね、ここ。
Yep, it's a student dorm, you know. Student dorm in this Hicksville? Still, my senses had betrayed me. There actually were other people here.
ちなみに春明さん、他の人と出会ってトラブったりしてないよね。
By the way, you didn't run into anyone else and get in trouble, right?
うん。一応それ警戒してたから。
Yeah, I was careful on that front.
ならよかった。よし、ちょっとしたら食堂に行きましょう。
Good, let's get ready to go to the dining hall.
あ、朝食？
Oh, for breakfast?
の、朝食は今から食べてください。食堂へは一応面通しをしに行くの。
Eat your breakfast now. We'll go to the dining hall to introduce you.
誰と？
Huh? To who?
よそ者が皿長からやってきたって
Whoever,
ことに
to whoever has a
文句を言いそうな
problem
人
with an
たち。
outsider coming from Saranaga. Oh, so like that Taiba person.
お世話になり
I'm
ま
in
す。
your hands then.
いいってことです。
It's fine. If you're that grateful, keep what happened this morning a secret.
そりゃもちろん。と
Sure
ころで
thing. What's Saranaga anyway? That river?
そう。
Yep, the river is called Saranaga Rapids, but the area around it is called Saranaga.
ちょっと曰くのある場所
The
で、ね。
place has some cultural
いわ
significance.
く
It does.
うん。
Yep, they say it's a corrupt place where the dead return from the other side.
死人が帰ってくるみたいな
Oh, there's a
伝説だね。
possible linkage to your speculation at the beginning. What with the number 4 key there, Tass? Oh. So that's why they reacted like that.
他にもその手のルールというか。
Any other rules or customs I should be aware of?
たくさんあります。
Oh, there's lots.
なの
So
で
just leave everything to me,
ちえみちゃんに
alright?
お任せを。
Gladly, on all
ちな
fronts.
みに身の危険とか
If
は？
I may ask, am I in danger?
ないない。
No,
でも
but you should try to
いろいろ
escape
不幸な
before
思いをす
something
る前に
unpleasant happens to you.
早く出て行けた方がいいかも。
You're not in danger. Just something bad might happen. It's okay.
そのための根回しに行
And you're
く
gonna lay the groundwork for that, huh?
そうそう。
Yep. The settlement I'd strayed to was a weird place, but at least the guide was reliable. And she wanted me to leave as soon as possible, huh?
Hmm?
That was depressing. Jimmy gave me some cup ramen for breakfast. She boiled the water in a small electric kettle. The girl herself was too hungover to eat anything. I did take the opportunity to pay her back for last night's drinks in person, though. Then we made our way to the dining hall.
この岩って何なの？
What are these boulders?
一応
They're like
お守り
charms,
みた
I
いな
guess.
もの。
They've been here
よそ
forever.
では見たことないよ。
I've never seen anything like them anywhere else. You mean city boulders? There's city boulders everywhere. How have you not noticed the city boulders?
ああ、
Oh
言われた
yeah,
らそう
I guess
かも。
they're kind of unique to this area. She led me along a narrower path than I'd followed earlier. It didn't seem like any cars used this one. It was very farmy, I guess? This area was also littered with those boulders. Some were cracked, broken, or half buried in the fields. They were clearly religious symbols, but it didn't look like they were that important these days. Or were they? Now that I knew I was safe, I once again became curious about this place.
人だ。
Oh, there's a person. He was working on the field.
くみ兄ちゃんだ。おはよ
That's Takumi. Morning. Jimmy waved her hand. The man responded, then froze
う。
midway.
じゃあ行きましょう。
Let's go.
いいの？
Are you sure we should? That guy looked pretty surprised to see me.
大丈夫。
Don't worry, he'll be at the
どうせ後で
dining
食堂に来る
hall
から
soon. We'll
説
explain
明は
things
その
then.
時にするってことで。
Drawing attention to that, to them, and thus him, to ensure that more people come to figure out what's going on. Well, if she said so. As an outsider, I had no choice but to rely on her. This was the part of the village I saw this morning, where the buildings were more densely packed. I didn't notice it back then, but it was actually kind of weird. Basically, it felt desolate. The wooden bungalows in particular were more or less overgrown, buried in tall grass and other greenery. If this was all I saw of the village and someone told me it was abandoned, I'd have easily believed them. However, two of the buildings stood out. There was a hall right beyond the hill. It wasn't that big, but it looked grand and well maintained. The other building was obviously the dining hall. It looked a bit dirty, but I could tell there were people inside. From what I could tell, it was the most lively place in this poor excuse for a community. There's our main character. He'd been withholding his Karen-ness for a while, but it's back. Suddenly, the three students walked out, chatting about something.
あ、知恵ね。と、ふさしさん。
Oh, you two.
再度おはよう。ちょっと遅く。
Morning again, aren't you late?
モッチーがバカなことばっか言って遅くなっちゃったんだもん。
We took forever because Mochi couldn't stop saying nonsense.
そうだ、僕が悪だ。味噌
Yes,
汁を
I am
よこせ。
evil. Give me miso soup.
まあ早足なら間に合うでしょ。
You'll make it if you hurry. Behave in class, you guys. Half dashing, the three ran up the path we came from.
みんな高校生なんだ。
They're all in high school, huh?
そう。山をぐーっ
Yep,
と
there's a
登っ
branch
たと
school
ころに
all the way up
高
the
校がある
mountain.
んだ。
I was there myself 3 years
私も
ago.
3年前まで通ってたな。
やたら不便だね。
Sounds like a hassle. Well, at least you don't have to go up the mountain both ways.
それでもみんな
It's not all that bad. At least we get to live in that dorm. Jamie was entirely straight-faced. There wasn't even a hint of a smile.
さあ、気
All
合
right,
を入れて
let's get
入りましょ
psyched.
そうしましょ
う。気合
Yeah,
入
I'm
んない
not I'm not convinced. We laughed a little and passed the curtain.
いらっしゃい。あら、
Welcome. Oh. The inside was as aged as the outside, but it looked well maintained.
ちえみちゃん、お客さん？
Is he a visitor, Chimmy? The hostess-looking lady asked. Though somewhat aged and fatigued, she was definitely beautiful. There we go. That's the initial impression. Oh, well, yeah, let's assess the looks. There were two others beside her. One was a lady in her 70s or 80s. She was probably the one I saw this morning. The silhouette matched. The other was a man who seemed a bit younger than her, probably in his late 60s. Though they were just sitting there, there was a menacing aura about them.
うん、
I'll introduce him.
紹介するね。
This is Haruaki Fusaishi.
昨日の晩、
I found him at Saranaga last night and took him into my care. Their reactions were powerful. Old lady looks horrified. Middle one looks concerned. Guy on the right looks angry. The lady gasped while the two elders rose to their feet with alarm. The tension that was already there the moment I walked in reached its peak.
気にするのもわかるけど、
I know you're concerned, but this is just a coincidence.
あの子と違って、
Unlike that little girl, we know exactly where he came
バイ
from.
クで旧道に
He
突っ込ん
went
で
on an old
事故に遭
path
って
with his bike
非常
and
に気の毒
crashed.
な
It's
事情
actually
も
really sad.
そんなわけで、
That's why I think we should help
我々としては
him leave.
どうですか？皆様
What do you think? After saying all that, Jamie fell silent. Ball was in their court now. Pause. Pause.
それは
Now
大
that
変。
is troubling. Lady voiced a harmless opinion, careful not to upset the old people. It was pretty clear who was in charge. They were elders in more way than one.
ちいちゃんは
Chemi, why did you even go to Saranaga last night?
虫の知らせかな。
I had a hunch, I guess. You know what happened. I couldn't fall asleep. Then he's gotta be a Yomibito. I know I've heard that, but I don't know, I don't recall what it would translate to. Shut it, Taiba. From the conversation, it was clear that something had happened before I arrived here. It was probably similar to what happened with me. She'd mentioned some little girl. Perhaps there was a child who'd wandered in here like I did. According to Chiemi, the Saranaga Fields were a place of significance around here. It was a place from which dead people could come back to life, or whatever. Oh, so this time must have been the lady that the boy mentioned. And the Yomibito must have been a term for the dead who come from there. Apparently, the primary goal here was convincing these elders to approve helping. Where are you from? The old man's voice put my derailed mind back on track.
はい、東京です。
I'm from Tokyo. How old are you?
年は24です。
24. Older than Chie, huh? He chuckled. I immediately realized he was taking a jab at me for hiding behind a younger girl.
申し遅れました。久石春明です。
Nice to meet you. I'm Haruaki Fusaishi. Like I said, I wandered into town after my bike crashed.
どうやら僕はここでは異分子のようで。
I seem to be a total outsider here, so I didn't want to speak out of turn. So that's why I asked her to talk on my behalf, but I think I should say something at least. I won't trouble you any longer than I have to, so I would be grateful if you pardon my brief stay. And please don't blame her for helping.
春明さん。
Hey, I think she went against the village's customs by helping me out. The students also seemed surprised.
これでも大人です。
I'm an adult. I'm willing to take responsibility for any trouble I caused as best I can. So please, put up with me.
お願いします。
Hey there, Zamdani. We are playing a visual novel, yes. It only took us a little bit to get past establishing this main character here as one of the worst people. Like a Karen meets a white panel van creeper, you know? This game is called Raging Loop. Full-on visual novel with a nice mechanic for returning to key decision forks in the plot line. So any place that causes the plot to diverge has a jump point in it. So we go to detailed chart here. So we have these points where key events happen and we can see forks that come through. We're going to save here just in case I hit the wrong button. Yep, it's called Raging Loop. So yeah, main character, terrible person. Terrible person. Really hoping he gets killed horribly. Otherwise, there's some potential to this. It implies that there are werewolves, and we're in a rural village that seems to be very averse to outsiders. We arrived at a location that is known for being a place that the dead return to the world of the living. So everybody's suspicious of us. Apparently, a day before we arrived, a little girl arrived in the same place. Yeah, he's just terrible, Samdani. He is just terrible. Yeah, I'm hoping it turns out okay. It's not helping that today is kind of a slow, sleepy day, so kind of soldiering through here. I saw you doing a guest stream with somebody playing some fighting games, various fighting games. I bowed my head.
ちゃんとしとる、タイバ
He seems all right to me, Taiba.
私はすかんわね。そんなに
Don't know about that. Look at his hair, all colored brown. Look at him standing there with his hair. I forgot. I didn't look very presentable to more traditionalist people.
よそはみなこうよ。
Outsiders are like that. Just help him get out of here, I says. Lots and lots of reading. Yeah, this one's interesting. It did open with a kind of a message from the developers that was effectively, please don't stream anything past the main storyline. There's apparently a mechanic in the game that you can turn on where this little cartoon sheep will pop out and say, you are now reaching the point where you should stop streaming. Given the age of the game and the fact that all streaming is transformative work, assuming I do what I'm doing, if the game is good, that won't stop me. But I think it is a nice feature, and it is introducing it explicitly like that instead of trying to talk to people after the fact, I think is a better way to go about it. If they just complained in videos and tried to like copy strike stuff, then, then you're being terrible. But asking nicely and saying, please don't spoil this is nice. But we'll see. If we get really into it, we're not going to stop. If we don't get really into it, then that's far enough.
ほいじゃあ好きにしなさいね。
Do what you want. So you have the old lady who is like, no, I don't trust this guy. And the old man is essentially, I don't care. Do what we need to do to get him out of here. I guess I got their half-hearted approval.
春秋。春か。うちの孫も春じゃ。紛らわしい。
Haru, huh? Like my granddaughter. What a mess. Okay, so he's the grandfather of the screamy, suspicious girl.
あ、もしかして
But how's your day going for you, Danny? Ah, so that means you're... Yep, he's Haru-chan's grandpa, Kanzo Makishima.
どうも。
A pleasure. I didn't know what else to say. Haru-chan and I weren't on the best of terms so far. Anyway, it seemed like we were past the difficult part.
サラナガに突っ込んだか。
Drove into Saranagi, huh? Or Saranaga, huh?
いえ。
No, actually I asked for directions at a convenience store, went down a side road, and ended up losing control on an unpaved section.
横転しました。
I mean, maybe they just poorly described it as a steep downward incline, but from the way he was describing it, like, he went off a hillside, That's not just, oh, it's an unpaved road. That was, like, bounced down a hill,
で、サラナガ登ったか。
And then you went, you went in Saranaga. Why didn't you turn around? He wasn't impressed by my choice of actions. Nobody is impressed by your choice of actions, sir. You have made nothing but bad choices this entire game, and you seemingly revel in them. Like, oh man, this is a bad decision, but I made it, so I'm just going to keep rolling with it, even though I could easily turn back and make a different choice. It just hit me that I had no idea how much time passed between the crash and my meeting with Jimmy.
わしと匠で見てきちゃる。
Hakumian, I'll go see it.
匠は田を見よるわよ。
Hakumi's working in the field.
タイバ、
It's to get him to leave. Let the boy help.
カンちゃんはいい
Never change,
そうそう
Kanchan.
ね
ばあちゃん、おやさん、どうした
Oh, wow. He's a biggin. What's going on here? We're joined by a new inhabitant.
ちえみ、こいつは
Jemmy, who's that guy?
あ、たくみ姉ちゃん。
Takumi. Oh, so he was the one we saw in the field. He sure looked big from up close. All that field work was good for his muscles, clearly. And from what I could tell, he was in his 30s. As Jemmy introduced me and told him of my situation, I found out his name was Takumi Muru.
ああ、
ブルー
そいつは災難だったな。ああ、おやさん、
And that must have been hard. So old man Kanzo will pick it up.
だな。
Thought so.
ばあちゃん、こい
Hi
つ
about
助けるから
Chan.
ちょっと待っててな
Wait a bit while I help the guy. I already spread the stuff on the field, so I'll mow the grass at noon.
たくみは優しいね
What a good boy. It ain't a big deal, so I'll be quick, so you'll think nothing happened.
そうね
Good to hear.
お
Nothing,
兄
eh?
ちゃんや
Boy.
僕ですか？はい。
Did she actually say boy? It almost sounded like she said like little brother. Me? What is it?
ここは安水
You're in Yasumizu. It ain't a good place.
あんまりいい場所じゃないんよ
It was a place that wasn't good? Not my presence here?
私らもよそのもんが苦手
We don't like outsiders here, and outsiders should let sleeping dogs lie.
じゃからはよ
You should hurry up and leave.
はい。
That's the plan.
話はついた感じか。
So it's settled?
ありが
Yep.
とう。
Thanks,
たくみ姉ちゃん
Takumi. I was beginning to understand how things worked here. Although Kanzo's voice was the most powerful here, it was also important to get Tai-san's approval. Kanzo-san was probably in charge of tackling the settlement's practical problems, and Tai-san provided spiritual and moral direction. And when it was time to be civilized, Takumi came and convinced Tai-san acting as an intermediary. Suddenly, he's able to read a room and make sound judgments about how people are acting, not like last night. As Danny, so early on we saw that he makes terrible decisions and doesn't like think twice about anything. Then he arrives at the convenience store and effectively cements his position as a primal Karen. Proceeds to go off the road, encounter somebody, and ensure that we know that he is as much of a creeper as possible. And now he's trying to act as if he's very conscious of, being a good person in a society. All of these things encompass this character, and that's kind of why we want him dead. But unfortunately, he's sticking around long enough that I feel like our wish will go unfulfilled. It looked like Takumi-san himself understood such subtleties, and Chiemi seemed to rely on this side of him.
はいここらで
Here you go.
一つどうぞ
The lady brought some tea to the old folk. Perfect timing.
おお、香織さん。俺には飯頼
Oh,
むぜ
Kaori. Looking forward to getting some food. So that was her name.
えへ朝
Sure, I'll
早
make
く
a
から
lot.
お疲れ様
It'll be a reward for waking up early and
大盛り
working
に
hard.
しますからね
なーに
Yeah, I'm doing it for
おじさんの
Yasumizu
ためならへでも
and you. It's nothing. Yasumizu, Grandma, and you. It's nothing really.
まあ
Oh my. These two sure seemed to get along. They looked about the same age, too.
さあお客
Would
さ
you
ん
like
も
something to
ご飯に
eat, too?
あ、いえ、
No thanks. I
いただ
already
いてき
ate.
たの。
And here's some tea. I can also get you a light snack if you'd like. What would you say to some onigiri? Okay, we're going to pause real quick, and I'll be right back. And then more reading. Getting situated, then we will resume. Ember's just feeling a little sneezy and that there's nothing wrong. sneezing quite a bit. So, with any luck, that'll clear tonight. Bit hypersensitive to kitty health recently. Okay, let's get back into it. Okay, let's see. Would you like some rice balls?
ああ、それはそれは。
Oh, that would be...
ごめんなさい。ちょっと急いで
Sorry, can we
電話
borrow the
借りていいか
phone?
な
We need it
香織さん
quick. Oh?
それはいいけどお茶く
Sure,
らい
but why
は
not have some tea first?
うんありがとう
Thanks, but it's
でもほんと
urgent.
緊急だ
Let's
から
go. Sure.
うん。
Didn't look like I could say no. Oh, suddenly, Jemmy is very interested in shoving us out the door. Went up the nearby stairs to what seemed like a living space. At the end of the creaky hallway, there was a black rotary phone, a rarity in this day and age. Anybody remember rotary phones? Like, remember using them? Interesting devices. The whole concept of the mechanism is interesting. The idea of essentially turning the dial until it hits the key number that you want and then letting it go so it resets. There's some charm to it. It's not like I think, oh, they were better. You know, it was a big chunky mechanism, but still. Well, that, and it amounts to a primitive landline phone, which is already in some places, an anachronism.
これがここ
This is
安
the
水
only
唯一の
phone
電
in
話だから
all of Yasumizu, by the way. Seriously?
ちなみに携帯電話はどのキャリアも通じませんの
Oh,
で
and not a single mobile service provider works in this area.
そうなのか。
Really? Wait.
でもどこに電
Who
話
do
し
you
ろっ
want me to
て。
call anyway?
ロードサービスとか
Road service,
保険とか
insurance, stuff like
あ
that.
と
In
必要な
family
ら
if you
家
have
族に
to.
も連絡
Oh, that made sense. Hell, I should have been the one to say that.
さっきも言ったけどできるだけここを早く出られた方がいいから使えるものは何でも使いましょう
Like I said, it'd be best if you left as soon as possible, so you should use everything you have. Leverage all of your resources. Do everything you can to get out of here as quickly as you can. Nothing I'm saying is ominous.
よそ者が歓迎され
Because
ない場所だ
outsiders
と
aren't welcome here?
そういうことです
Yep. Very straightforward.
それ以上の詮索は
And I
無
shouldn't
用
pry any further, huh?
ね
Haruaki,
春明さん
I
は
see you catch on
とて
quickly.
も察
That's
し
good.
ただ好奇心もと
But
て
you
も
also
強
seem
く見える
really curious. Absolutely, Zomdani. Everything is fine. Nobody's in danger. It's gonna be okay. Like, despite the fact that she said, you know, I felt like it was very important to bring you inside because I would have felt bad if you were killed on my watch.
バレたか。
Shows, huh?
バレますとも
Of course it does. Honestly, though, you should avoid sticking your nose into
どう
things.
せすぐに別れるんだ
Because
し
we'll part ways soon anyway.
その通り
Exactly. That's why.
なんだか寂しいな。
That's kind of sad.
ちえみちゃんのメアドをご所
You
望
want my
くれ
contact
るなら
info?
ぜひ。
You're willing to give it.
やったこれで男友達53人
Makes you guy number 53 on the list. So the general list, Zomdani, is it started with the fact that one of his relationships seems to have ended badly to the extent where he seems to be traveling with very little personal effects on a motorcycle and is just taking random directions, it seems. Because it opens with him getting lost and seeming to be completely helpless about it. Like, oh man, I can't turn back. The only way is forward. Not that he's out of gas or anything like that. He has a map, but he apparently can't read it. He reaches a convenience store, immediately assumes that the clerk is going to like beat him up and rob him, and then pivots to acting like a standard Karen when the person doesn't beat him up and doesn't treat him deferentially. Like he actually says, I will now be her, as a customer, I will be her god. And then proceeds to act disappointed when she doesn't treat him deferentially and also doesn't beat him up. Like he makes a point that he was kind of excited for the beating and then disappointed when it didn't happen, but also relieved that it didn't happen. She gives him instructions after he badgers her to give him directions. He follows those directions and reaches an unpaved portion of the road. He described it as a cliffside that he drove over, but apparently it was just an unpaved, like, downhill area. Crashes, comes to, wanders out, encounters Chiemi, the person here. She takes him back to her place so that he has a place to stay the night. She gives him lots of alcohol, and she drinks herself stupid. But during it, she asks him what he thinks her motivations were. All of the initial motivations that he supplied to her were essentially that she was ignorant of the risks of inviting a man in there with her and getting herself drunk, or that she wanted that to happen, all the while commenting on her appearance. Like, she's so pretty, I'm pleased that I can be in here when she is changing her clothes, that kind of thing. That's why we think this guy is terrible. Just terrible. Because we have to be inside his head and hear what he's thinking. So, I mean, to some extent, based on the descriptions of the game and the operations of the game, there is some consolation in the fact that there are dead-end story paths, and we're probably going to get to see him killed many times. It'll be nice.
テンションガタ落ちですわ。
Man, if that's not a letdown. We still went on to exchange our info. I could only hope that being number 53 wasn't as big a problem as it sounded. No, being number 53 in the list is not the problem. She just explained to you that that old landline phone is the only phone in the area and that there is no cell coverage. What good is her contact info going to do you? We can only hope that there is some storyline behind the main characters on Danny that will take all of that prior information that we saw and give it some context that will then be like, okay, he's behaving terribly, but we at least have a justification for that. And even if he doesn't turn around and become a better person, we know that we will establish that he is in fact a person and not some terrible caricature. Anyway, I'd still like to know the reason why me being here is such a big deal. I don't recommend it.
なぜかな?
But why?
私が不愉快になるから。
Because it'd make me upset.
あんまり故郷
You
が好
don't
きじゃない。
like it here?
うん。
Yeah, I
正
actually
直
hate it.
嫌い。
Yes. It's you can have a character that you don't like, that you're not meant to like. That as long as you get to see them as a person, that you can understand, like you can draw connections from their thought processes and their experiences to their actions. then it's okay that they're terrible and that the story keeps following them. You don't have to empathize, and it doesn't have to justify what they're doing. In fact, you don't want it to over empathize or justify if they're terrible people. But at least you should understand their motivations. Even if those motivations are this person has enough enough screws loose that that their actions are disconnected from reality. You at least know that their actions are disconnected and you can follow that. So Shinji from Evangelion isn't the most likable person, but you have some connections to why some of that's happening. A modern example is Rick from Rick and Morty. Rick is a terrible person. You get to see some of their past and what's going on and why some of that is happening, to where there are lines that you can draw from it that tell you why that's going on. But Rick is clearly written to be a terrible person that you are not supposed to identify with. You are not supposed to consider him like an aspirational target. He's not a good person. And that's one of the aspects that I really like about that show, is that very frequently at the end of a season, almost universally at the end of the season, they emphasize that he is aware of what a bad person he is and what his life has done to him. That is the trope about the Rick and Morty fan base, Zomdanny, is um, the people that really idolize Rick immediately tell you what kind of Rick and Morty fan they are. And that you probably shouldn't be their friend. You seem to get along with the people, though. That's just how it looks. I was a huge problem child, so I feel kind of awkward around the older folks here. Reading more than Phoenix Wright, man. So much reading that this is a strain. On that topic of Rick and Morty, I am interested to see what happens with the series with with them proclaiming that they want to continue and that they are getting a new voice actor for Rick and Morty, given that I can't remember which of the kind of lead authors is leaving because he is apparently terrible. And I mean, like, a really bad person. So, good riddance. If the allegations are true, but the documentation surrounding the allegations are not the kind of things that allegedly fit nicely with. They're the kind of allegations and police reports that say, when we arrived, stuff had gone down. Stuff had very clearly gone down. And then subsequently, the surrounding events seem to corroborate that the behavior of this person and the likelihood of those events going down that way. So, innocent till proven guilty, that kind of thing. But looks really bad on that dude, the way things are unfolding. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because there are a lot of people out there that could apparently do the voices very well. I'm interested to see how that goes and what influence it has on the show. Supposedly, he wasn't a serious contributor to the writing anymore. Even the game studio he founded has pretty much disavowed the guy. But yeah, interested to see. I do enjoy the series. Let's see. Something else I was looking into recently. Maybe that'll be one of those chat topics I do in the near future, is talk about some shows that I've liked, as well as some older ones. Getting into some older ones be cool. You ever hear of a series called, I think it's Channel Zero? With that, I decided to stop prying about this place any further. I'd back away before she came to hate me.
あ、でも、一つだけ聞いていい
Can I ask one thing, though?
いい度胸
Gutsy, go
何かな
ahead.
室匠さんのこと、
Do you
好きだ
like
ったり
that
する
Takumi Moro guy?
私が
What? Me? Like him?
うん。
Yeah. No way. Takumi's cool and all, but he's too rugged and over a decade older than me.
ごつすぎるし
He's out of my
友
strike
情と
zone.
違うそれに匠兄ちゃんは昔から香織さん一筋だし
He's always only had eyes for Kaori-san.
やっぱそうなんだ。
It sure felt like it. They married or something?
うん
Nope.
香織さん
Kaori-san's a
未亡
widow.
人だから
Well, that seemed complicated. That aside, Chemi had been acting a bit strange. Why had she dragged me away from the tea? It seemed so awkward, too. Channel Zero, I think, is an example of something we mentioned during one of our recent streams, where I was talking about things that are so weird they're kind of unsettling are better things to use in a lot of horror media than killer monsters. Because killer monsters often rely on the fact that either they're startling, like they, monster cabinets, they jump out and spook you, or that they're supposed to be a threat to the life of the people involved. And as a viewer from outside, I know my life is not threatened. It can't get me. It can't reach through the screen and kill me. So the only thing it has left is that it can kill the characters. And unless I have built a connection with those characters, who cares about them? Or it can startle me. And being startled does not a horror scenario make. I mean, you can startle somebody by jumping out from behind a door. But if something is so strange it's unsettling, it doesn't matter if it's in media. It doesn't matter if it's just a still picture. I mean, the whole SCP concept and creepypasta concept generally relies on these concepts of they are fundamentally unsettling. Like, it's not just that they could get you, it's that they represent fundamental concepts that are strange or dangerous. I can't remember its SCP number, but the peanut that can move and will try to kill you if you aren't making eye contact with it. The same thing as the Doctor Who Weeping Angels. The idea that there is something that you have to watch or it is a threat. It doesn't need to be scary looking. It doesn't need to be a thing that's coming to get you. It's the idea that if you can't see it, that's when it's a threat. That's when it's something that is dangerous to you, is when you can't see it at all. When you see it, it's harmless. That's a neat idea. But those kind of things. The thing that spurred that conversation was, I can't remember the name precisely, but the title of the tabletop RPG was like "Don't Fall Asleep" or something like that, with the gimmick being that the player characters are insomniacs, and they can perceive kind of an other world and have powers associated. But the minute they fall asleep, they're dead meat. It's that sort of, since you can perceive it, they can get you, and the only way you're safe is if you're awake, kind of thing. And one of the creatures in it A lot of the creatures were very, like, a lot of symbolic things and a lot of direct imagery. But you had a group called the Taxmen. And mostly they presented as like black business suit guys, but their heads were thumbtacks. So the tax men. Oh, okay, that's what prompted it. We were playing Murder by Numbers, and we were finding sneakers, and I believe Casemate mentioned something about, sneaker heads probably like them, sneaker enthusiasts, um, collectors of sports shoes. And I had said that, and that reminded me of the taxman, the idea of something that looked like a very formal or like otherwise professional individual, except that they have a shoe, like they have a sports shoe in place of their head. A strange and potentially unsettling image, something that is like that doesn't fit, that doesn't make sense. The dissonance between the rest of the outfit and how they are presenting themselves and the fact that there's a shoe where their head should be. That can be strange as just a still image. It's a thing that makes you wonder, what is that? Why is that? Let's see. Seems so awkward. Assuming she hadn't been jealous of Kaori-san's and simply didn't want her to charm me, it would mean that, yeah, right there, Zomdani. This is an inkling of what we were talking about. How Haruaki's not a great guy. Assuming she hadn't been jealous of this other woman and simply didn't want her to charm me. That is one of the primary thought paths that he assumes of this woman near him. Both that Kaori-san was motivated by wanting him, and that Chiemi-san might be motivated by jealousy about him. Yeah, there's some real narcissism going on here, Zomdani. It would mean that she just hadn't wanted me to drink the tea. Why? Also, why'd she feed me a cup ramen if I could have just gotten food at the dining hall? All right. Well, we have the possibility of a was it a I'm trying to remember of the place, the name of the Greek underworld, but a Hades pomegranates scenario. Looking too deep into things was part of my nature, though things were never as bad as I assumed. Ominous foreshadowing. I went on to call my insurance company, where I found out something. Apparently, this village was hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest service station, meaning I was ineligible for the normal service and had to pay extra. The extra was no small amount, too. It actually went over 100,000 yen. Okay, so a substantial bit of extra. Also, I could have avoided this if I'd taken a more expensive plan. This was all my own fault for not taking the bike salesman's advice. I said I'd consider it and hung up. Then I went back to the dining hall.
あれ、おじいさんたちは。
It's, where did everyone go? One of the words that was actually said was Oji-san, which I'm mispronouncing. But I thought that was like either just an honorific for an elder or effectively saying something like old man, like a grandfather kind of thing. The customers had changed completely. Tai-san, Kanzo-san, and Takumi-san were gone now, and they were replaced by a caricature of a juvenile delinquent. Are we going to see a pompadour and like a modified school uniform? Let's see. I'm not seeing it. I mean, punk kid at worst, as far as the imagery is concerned. I mean, bare chest, open sport, like open windbreaker, piercings, and dyed hair. That's it. Exactly, Zomdanny. If I think caricature of a school delinquent, Jotaro is actually it. Jotaro carries it a little further. Greatly further. We're talking JoJo further, but that's kind of the image of the delinquent. This could be like any punk on the street stereotype character. You've been playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's this actually lines up with some of the random encounter characters there. Just random punk on the street. Who are you? He shouted at me. He seemed like he was trying too hard. Then he slammed his bowl and chopsticks on the table and stood up to intimidate me. I'm Haruaki Fusaichi. You want to go? Pretty much, Danny. This is not... As far as, like, real world, if you were to take this image and, you know, transfer it to the real world, this is nothing special. Anime stereotype-wise, it's different, but this is not a caricature. And even his behavior is not necessarily out of the norm. It is not uncommon to encounter the guy who is overcompensatingly aggressive. Yoshitsugu. You don't talk like that to someone you just met. Okay, it actually looks like that lines up because the whole Baba thing falls in with, like, disrespectful as far as old woman. Jimmy, who's this guy? Haruaki-san, a traveler who crashed his bike. That introduction was half-assed. Let me introduce them to you. This is Kaori Oribe and her second son. Kaori Oribe and her second son, Yoshitsugu. Yasunaga's the first. Okay, Yasunaga is the more rational member of the Students 3. Yep. They may not look like it at first, but they're alike, don't you think? Yeah, he's just wearing gym wear, too. The Oribes, what an unpredictable family. I'm talking about bro. If you look at her facial expression, you can see her left cheek is kind of twisted more. It's leaning towards that kind of one-sided sneer. Were this anime, there would be the little pulsing vessel red icon over her head. Perhaps with a shaking fist, you know? Like, I'm about to wreck you sort of expression. Call me that all you want. I'm confident in my popularity. And from what I've seen, that confidence was well justified. Go back to the city, you idiot. Oh no, Haruaki. I don't think I can argue with that. What, you were an idiot? Alright then. Oh dear. Oh, how mean.
言ってやろうぜ吉嗣君。バカバカ。
Let's continue. Haruaki doing Haruaki things.
なんなんだよてめえ。
What?
死ねバカに
Don't
してんじゃ
talk
ねえよ
about Chami. This is the first, like, well, this is one of the stereotypes for your anime punk kid here. That expression, that kind of fish-lipped, like, brow over-creased kind of thing. You'd almost expect him to be crouched down, getting right up in the guy's face, you know? You're pretty conflicted, aren't you?
ごめんちえみちゃん。
Sorry,
本心じゃ
Chimmy.
ないんだ。
I was just playing.
おお、見事な連続手のひら返し。
One reversal after another. It takes quite a man to surprise me.
春秋さん。
ちえみちゃんには負けないぜ。
I just don't want to lose to you, that's all.
付き合ってんのかてめえら。
Are you dating or something? Boy, did I wish.
いい加減になさいよ。
Stop it, Yoshitsugu. You're already late. Change and go to school.
うるせえ。行かねえよ。
I ain't going. I don't want to go to school. Mumbling something, the kid walked out of the dining hall, leaving his half-full bowl behind.
ごめんなさいね。お恥ずかしい。
Sorry about that. How embarrassing.
根は素直ないい子なんですけどね。
He's a really good boy deep down, though. Yeah, I could actually see that. Somewhat.
あ、ところで、
By the way, where are Makishima-san and Muro-san?
あ、もう
They went to pick up your bike.
まずい。追いかけな
No,
いと。
no, I gotta hurry after them.
場所は分かってるみたいだ
Hey,
った
they
し
know where it
大
is.
丈夫
They'll be
じゃない
fine, don't you think?
いや。
Well, you just have to set it on neutral and push, but I'm not sure they'll know how to do it.
あとさすがに手
And
伝
I,
い
of all people, should help.
作業が
They might
非効率に
go
なっちゃう
go
ま
about
ずい
it the wrong way. It's got that, like, there's a balance of things going on. The first phrase is, I don't think they'll know that there's a good chance they won't know how to operate a motor vehicle. Then since I was involved in making this mess, I should help. That's a good way to put it. And then he immediately follows it up with his, I'm badly stereotyping these people and I'm kind of a jerk sandwich that he's forming. They might go about it the wrong way. Exactly, Tass. These yokels might not know what they're doing, and I, the city boy, must save them. Oh.
その程度なら手出しを
If that's all, then you shouldn't bother.
なんで
Huh?
取りも直さず
Because you're an outsider. I wouldn't suggest spending too much time alone with them.
問題になりそうな人たちには思えなかったけど。
They didn't seem that bad to me.
そりゃ二人とも大人だから
That's because they're adults. Don't assume everyone here is as welcoming as me. I'm an exception.
春秋さんは平気かもだけど一緒にいると向こう
You
が
might get along fine, but you might also set them off. This place is already far from normal. Don't risk making it worse. She is saying this right next to Kaori-san. Like, I'm an exception. Not like people like her. I mean, she might tear you apart if you actually, look at her the wrong way.
まあ、そうね。
And
任せろと言わ
Kaori
れた
doesn't
ら
disagree.
手出しをしない方がいいでしょ
They
うね。
insisted you leave it to them, so that's what you should do.
そうなんですか。
You think so too.
え
Yes. The men here are pretty serious about Yasumizu having its own way of doing
え
things.
男の人たちは
I
それ
could
が
somewhat
こだわる
understand
から
that. visitor should behave like one. Doing anything more would be uncalled for. It was an old-fashioned way of thinking, but this was an old-fashioned sort of place, for sure. I mean, though, I kind of agree with the, like, a guest should act like a guest. If you want to be treated like a guest, then you should act like a guest, sort of thing. I don't think that's an old-fashioned way of thinking. I don't think that should be an old-fashioned way of thinking. I understand that it probably is.
じゃあどこで待とうか。
Haruaki's I am the customer, therefore I am your god kind of behavior is why I guess I kind of understand that the idea of a guest should act like a guest if they'd like to be treated like a guest mentality is long gone. Where do we wait then? At my place. Expected as much, but it still made me curious. Normally you'd expect we'd sit around and drink some tea right here, so why didn't we? As we waited, Chiemi, casually but uncomfortably, told me several things. First, I found out that people here in Yasumizu were a bit on edge right now. The reason for that was the fact that, excluding me, they had 3 whole outsiders here. I had assumed this myself from what I knew so far, but apparently yesterday morning, a little girl was found straying around the Saranaga Rapids. They couldn't even find out her name, let alone who her parents were, so they didn't know how to handle her. For now, one of the inhabitants was looking after her. Like I'd been told, the more superstitious inhabitants, Taisan mostly, saw her as a bad omen. I suggested leaving her to the police, but Chiemi didn't seem to think it was a good idea. It barely made sense to me, but if I were to believe her, things around here were such that not even the cops could do anything. Interesting. And apparently the remaining 2 outsiders were a pair of journalists gathering info for a magazine article. Well, I'm sure they're going to do just fine in a horror story. Unlike the little girl and I, they'd come here via the normal route, through Kami Fujiyoshi, and therefore weren't considered a bad omen or whatever. So, arriving at the river is bad. Still, even normal outsiders put the people here on edge. Through this talk, I also got some details about the area itself. Yasumizu was a settlement part of an autonomous region called Fujiyoshi Village, or simply Fujiyoshi. Is that symbol in the top, kind of a little right of top center, supposed to be the compass? Like, is north right, kind of right, a bit down right? Why would you do? Ah, okay, they're indicating, like, the topography. Like, that is presented as a hillside. There is the cliff that he fell down. There is the pine forest. So yeah, he passed by the village, into the pine forest, went down the cliffside. It's listed as a cliff. He gets like, well, it was more like an unpaved road. That's a cliff. That's steeper than a 45-degree angle. It doesn't matter that it was unpaved. Even if it was paved, you would have bounced off the bottom of that thing. Went to the river, went back uphill to the town. Okay. It had also been on the map I'd been shown at the store. So the map was accurate. You were just, you just did it badly. Fujiyoshi was split into 2 areas, Yasumizu and Kami Fujiyoshi. They were separated by a mountain. Going to Kami Fujiyoshi took about an hour by foot or 20 minutes by car on the winding but paved road. Side note, the school the students went to was in Kami Fujiyoshi. Kami Fujiyoshi, I believe, was the place that he didn't go to because while Yasumizu was a half hour away, he didn't want to take the mountain road that would have led up to Kami Fujiyoshi because it was further away and he didn't want to deal with the mountain. I suspect that much of the bad in this whole storyline will be the result of wanting to spend half an hour instead of about an hour. An hour or 2 hours. I don't disagree that that was a significant factor and that that is a reasonable factor to take into account when riding at night. But it is also a comical underpinning to this sort of story. But it was so far. We had to go to, murder zombie hobo family village. Remember the movie Cabin in the Woods. You had so they had the list of things, the list of monsters that might be chosen to kill the sacrificial group of kids. And there were 2 entries that included zombies, just like there were 2 entries for witches. You had witches and sexy witches. Those were 2 different types of monster. You had zombies, and then it was like hillbilly murder zombies. They were 2 distinctive groups. Hillbilly murder zombies were not zombies. Yemi said the local seasonal events were quite unconventional. I asked her to elaborate, but all she would say was that Yasumitsu had special meaning to Fujiyoshi. She was making me more suspicious than I wanted to be. The conversation wasn't nearly as exciting as the one we had last night. Well, at least I found out she didn't have a boyfriend right now. Very intriguing. It was nearly noon when Takumi came back, ending my waiting game. Side note, the door was fully open the entire time we waited. It was probably Chimi's way of saying that nothing bad was happening here, to avoid the misunderstanding that happened earlier on. Bikes sure are heavy, huh? Ain't as heavy as the boar I caught last year. I really didn't expect them to just carry it here. Like, sure, there were 2 of them, but just how much mass did you have to have to haul a 200-kilogram piece of metal so easily? The unpaved road and the river made my sweet ride really muddy. How did you bring it up the cliff? There's a pulley. We bring stuff up from the bottom every now and then. Takumi. Oh yeah, now's not the time for that. Hey, you think this thing's alright? It looks pretty wet. Not sure, I'll check. I'll leave the rest to you. Old man, this took longer than I thought it would. It fine if I do some sharpening tomorrow? Sure, whatever. I saw them off with a loud thank you. Now then. Do you need help? I'll see what I can do by myself first. The worst part of the repairs was right at the beginning. I wanted to start by washing it, but that old lady, Tai Yamawaki was her full name, got really mad at me. She didn't want any Saranaga mud on the ground here because it was corrupt or something. But this plaza was the only place with easy access to a water supply tap, so I did my best and convinced her to let me wash it as close to the edge as possible. Once it was clean, I could start checking what was wrong with it. It actually looked pretty good. Bent in places, sure, but the wash got rid of the bad sound the wheels made. The only problem was that both tires were flat. And it was a pretty big one. You didn't bring tools? No. Aren't you supposed to whenever you go on a bike trip? I just thought I could call road service and they'd do all the work. So unprepared. I have no excuse. Honestly, I was having a moment when I went out. Didn't think things through.
冷静でもなかったのか
You
も。
didn't think things through? Shocking.
お事情を聞いてほしそう。
Oh, can I ask what happened?
彼女に振られたんだよ。
My girlfriend left me.
なんか嘘っぽいな。
That seems like a lie. It wasn't.
それはともかくパンク修理道具か。
In any case, somewhere to get tools to fix a flat tire.
野里屋敷ならあるかもしれ
There
ない
might
な。
be some in, Nosato Mansion.
野里屋敷
Nosato Mansion?
うん安水で一番大
Yep,
きなお
it's the
家。
biggest place in Yasumizu.
野里屋敷にない
If you
ものは
can't find something there, you
安水には
won't
ない
find it anywhere else in the village.
なるほど。じゃあそこの人にお願いしに行こ
I see, then let's give it a shot.
うーん
I don't really recommend meeting the guy, but I can't think of any
う。
other
また
ideas.
偉い人が登場
Someone important again?
うん
Yep, and he's
そ
kind
の
of
上
messed
ちょっ
up
と
to boot.
人格的にね。
All right, we're gonna save here. So there was a key point here, which was key 4. Somewhere in our conversation with her, there we go. Her objective. There was key 20 that we could use. And at the start, there was I started to remember something, and you had the option to effectively ignore it or or something else, and key 4 was that. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. We'll see how it goes. We'll give this at least another session. Now that we're past Haruaki's introduction, it's become a lot more tolerable. He's still kind of sleazy and stupid, but it's not this cavalcade of us having to experience how terrible he can be. Oh, good times, though. Good times, though. So what you folks think of Raging Loop so far, setting aside the main character? I do think there's some potential here. Like I said, I'm interested to see how the whole keys thing works out for us. Not having to play back through the whole game in order to experience different forks in the storyline should be neat. I'm also interested to see how the story canonically handles that. Like, what is the justification for that? Is this just we are re-experiencing the story, like us as the observer, or is it that the characters are experiencing a loop and have some influence over it accordingly? Kind of Groundhog Day, but with more murder, which is a movie I would watch. But all right, let's see. Tomorrow is one of our off days for stream. Finish up some video work. Then Monday, we'll be back with something casual. I haven't decided on what we'll pick up next, but it's going to be another casual thing that we can just chat during. So it will either be more of the nonogram puzzles. I have a big old pile of games for that, or it'll be something else along those lines, something that is just casual and that I don't have to be talking about the game the whole time. We can just talk while we play the game. Yeah. Right, folks, thanks again for watching with us tonight. I hope you had a good time, and I will see you again on Monday.